Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Hey, good to see you, brother. What's going on?
Good, man. It's been a wild year for me.
I bet it has been.
since I was last here. I mean, I've seen my YouTube grow to numbers I couldn't have imagined before. I've met so many cool people. I've managed to get to a point where it's now my job to research and investigate ancient history and the vast mysteries of our past. And yeah, I mean, that's something I was doing for free before. So the fact that I'm now able to do that full time is just an immense privilege. And I'm so grateful to everyone that's helped me get there, including you.
Well, you're putting out fantastic content.
Thank you.
So, and it's such an interesting subject. And the giant blind spot that the mainstream archaeologists have left has allowed all these people to go through and get a much larger audience even than them.
Yeah.
And it's really important when someone like you does it, because you're so thorough and you're so objective and you're so measured in the way you describe these things and talk about these things. There's no fantastic claims, no hyperbole. It's all very well laid out. And even when you go to like extreme possibilities of these things, it's very measured. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to make it as good as I possibly can. And I try and listen to what people say and trying to improve. And I don't think I've reached like the peak of where I could possibly be, but you know, I'm trying my hardest. But it's not just that. I mean, as you say, I think there are so many people out there, and now that I'm in this position, I've seen it firsthand. There are like millions and millions of people around the world that are deeply fascinated by these questions, by the vast mysteries of our past. So
as well, they should be. And they also know that we're getting a very narrow version of it from mainstream academics. They're so determined to cling to their timelines and cling to this notion that anything new that's discovered by people outside of their little circle can't be accurate. And I think that's so silly.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone like me has the kind of advantage of the fact that because I, didn't continue my career in academia, or I wasn't in academia, but that was the pathway that I was on.
Right.
Because I've gone independent now, I kind of have the freedom, if you like, to talk about these ideas in a much more open way than maybe I would have been able to if I was, wouldn't have been able to if I was still in academia, because, I'm not restricted by funding, or I'm not restricted by even the pressures of people working in academia hating on me. I mean, I get a lot of hate anyway, but I mean, I think I have that freedom to almost come at things from a completely open-minded perspective and speak about these ideas without any restrictions. And I think that is the advantage that I have that academics perhaps don't. So yeah, I mean, I'm in a great place.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So in the last year, a lot of wild stuff has been discovered, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how quick this stuff is moving.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, there's been, I think, 2 papers in particular that have come out in the year since I was last here on the show that I think have huge ramifications for how we view history. So, I mean, I don't know where to start. I mean, I think we should start like this. I think as things currently stand, there are 3 huge questions that archaeology cannot answer. And it's interesting because these 3 questions we used to think we had an answer to, but in light of new discoveries, in light of new evidence coming up, we no longer have the answer to these questions. And I think that's fascinating because it's almost like the rug has been pulled out from underneath our understanding of human history. But on the surface, it's kind of like business as usual. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
so what are these questions?
So, I mean, and this is just coming from me, right?
Okay.
So, like, the caveat on the whole conversation, I'm not an academic, I'm not a professional archaeologist, I have a degree in ancient history, but I think my main qualification is that I'm a super nerd for all this stuff, and I spent my whole life researching it. So that's the caveat on everything. So don't take what I say as gospel, and I always encourage people to go and look at the actual archaeology, go and read the journals, read the papers, and go investigate for yourself. Like, listen to what I say, but don't take what I say as gospel, because at the end of the day, I'm just a YouTuber, so
right.
That's the caveat I want to put on it. But from my mind, these are the 3 questions that I think archaeology can no longer answer, but used to think it had an answer for. So the first question is, and we spoke about this a little bit last time, is the fascinating question of why after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years of human beings like us being on this planet, why did it take so long for civilization to emerge? And then why, when it did it emerge in all these different unconnected locations all over the globe at pretty much the exact same time? So we see civilization flourishing in Mesoamerica. We see civilization flourishing in South America, in Egypt, in the Indus Valley, in Mesopotamia, in ancient India, and ancient China, all around about the same time, give or take a thousand or so years. But compared to the time span of human beings on this planet, 300,000 years plus for modern humans. And I would argue some of these papers are showing that it could be a lot longer than that. Why, after so long, did civilization suddenly crop up all over the place? And we no longer can answer that question in light of new discoveries. So that's question one. Why did civilization emerge everywhere all at once after so long of not doing so? Question two is, how old is human intelligence? How long have humans been intelligent? How long has a mind like ours really inhabited this planet? And I think two papers in particular that have come out in the 12 months since I was here have huge ramifications for that question. And also combined into that is the question of other human species. How intelligent were other human species? Because we used to think that we were the smart ones. I mean, our name, Homo sapiens, literally translates to wise man, which is an incredibly humble thing for us to say about ourselves. But yeah, so that's question two. How old is human intelligence? And again, I think the answer is we don't have the answer anymore. So that's really fascinating. And then question three is, when did humans first reach the more isolated land masses? So that's the Americas, where we are right now, and also Australia, which is perhaps less important, but still interesting. And again, we don't have the answer for that anymore. And I think whatever the answer is to these three questions, why does civilization appear everywhere all at once? How old is human intelligence? And when did humans first reach the more isolated parts of the world? The answer to those questions, whatever it is, I think is fundamentally important, because whatever the answer is the reason we're all here, right? It's the reason we all live in this civilization. It's the reason we all enjoy the fruits of everything that we exist in today. And yet we don't know the answer anymore. But as I said, on the surface, everyone's kind of carrying on like it's business as usual. But we no longer know the answer to the most fundamental questions of how we got here. So, yeah.
So for question number one, why did all of these civilizations emerge at roughly the same time? What do you think? Do you think that this is incorrect and that these civilizations probably existed far earlier than that, but there's no evidence of them because of time and just erosion and natural catastrophes and fill in the blank, all the factors? Or we have not discovered some of these yet, like some of the weirdness of the Amazon, as they find these what appear to be the grids of ancient cities that are hidden in the jungle that they're discovering with LiDAR and these other technologies that were unavailable until fairly recently. So we know that not only was the Amazon filled with people, but it was filled with millions of people. And that's crazy. That is a crazy shift in the way we used to look at the Amazon just a few decades ago. And we don't know who these people were. We don't know, if you go really far back, the Olmecs is just a word. We gave them that word. We don't know what the fuck they were doing. We have no idea what they looked like. We know some of the heads look roughly either Polynesian or perhaps even African. It's very strange. Very strange. Big, giant heads that are left behind, and that's the cornerstone of what we understand about the civilization. Okay. What? How long? 6,000 years, we think? Who knows? It's just a rough guess. There's really nothing to go on. Do you think that this is just as far back as we can find stuff? Or do you think, what do you think?
Well, I think in terms of the civilization question, I think it's an old idea that we kind of drew this line. And the line is the invention of writing, right? So it's around 3,000, 4,000 BC. was the invention of writing, or supposedly was the invention of writing. And that in the 20th century was kind of given as the marker of civilization. We were finding all these civilizations in the 20th century, like ancient Sumer. And so that was kind of given as the start of civilization. But I think in terms of like more recent stuff, so 3000 BC back to like 12,000 BC, I think the answer is that clearly civilization is older. I mean, considering we see things like Tashtapela, Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years ago. I think that is a civilization. I think over time that will come to be accepted as a civilization. And I think whatever you want to define civilization as, I think we can now clearly say that it did exist 12,000 years ago rather than 6,000 years ago. So that's a kind of doubling of the timeline. In terms of going back much further than that, I think then you get into kind of like purely hypothetical scenarios, like is it possible? And that's when I think things like the history of human intelligence start to come into play, because it was incredibly recently that we thought humans were only got intelligent. Well, we thought humans were young, like only 100,000 years old, only a few decades ago, and now we know we're much older than that. And so this is what I mean about everything kind of being back on the table again, because we now have a incredibly increased time span of human intelligence that I would argue, and I'll come to this later, stretches over 1 million years. And yet the old idea, which is still sort of in place, but I think is breaking. I think most archaeologists would accept that it's breaking. But the old idea was that humans only became intelligent around 50,000 years ago. And so because that idea kind of was in hold, it almost made sense, right? So humans only existed from 100,000 years ago, then got smart 50,000 years ago. Then the climate got good around 14,000 years ago. We see the agricultural revolution and the emergence of the first civilizations. Like, it was very neat, do you know what I mean? But now, in light of new evidence and in light of new discoveries, suddenly everything's back on the table. Suddenly the whole time span of prehistory, or not the whole of prehistory, but I would argue, and I'll get onto why I think this later, I would argue that the time span of human intelligence has increased by 20 times, from 50,000 to over 1 million years. And I'll explain why in a minute. But I think that puts everything back on the table. I think the possibilities of prehistory are so vast now because of our understanding has shifted so dramatically in the last few decades. And I don't think anyone's really talking about it. And that's kind of why I do what I do, because I really want to bang this drum, if you like, that everything's back on the table, as I say. And so, yeah, I don't know. I kind of got a bit sidetracked there from your original question.
Well, it's a great start. Jesse Michaels was here yesterday, and he had a really fascinating theory. I don't know if is that his theory or is it someone else's theory, the ergot theory? His theory was that he believes that agriculture, and that as they started agriculture, wasn't just significant in that you could like stay in one place and you would have food and you always had a reliable diet. You didn't have to worry about starving to death. And then because you had that sort of relaxation that came with that, you could start inventing things and building things, and civilization would advance. He thinks it's also because ergot grows on these different wheats and barleys and grains, and that these people, whether knowingly or unknowingly, were probably ingesting this psychedelic substance, which is akin to LSD, and that this was a key part of what Brian Murarescu talked about in the Eleusinian Mysteries in his great book, The Immortality Key, and that this was probably what led to a lot of invention, a lot of innovation, a lot of alternative thought, a lot of creativity, and a lot of whatever the wild advancements of the time were.
Did you see that they just not proved it, but they just did a study on the Eleusinian Mysteries where they kind of showed that they were doing, they did have ergot? Because when Brian wrote that book, they hadn't proved that, but something just came out that.
Did you see it was a puma bone pipe that they found that tested positive for DMT?
Where in Eleusis?
I do not know. I think it was, it might have been in the America. No, where was that? Peru, yes.
Oh, really?
Yes. How old is that, Jamie? See if you can put that into perplexity if it knows what this is all about, because it's a fascinating subject. Because not only does it imply that they were willingly taking psychedelic drugs, that somehow or another they knew how to make DMT. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, what? Because that's a complicated process when you have to separate the molecule from whatever plant it's in, and then you have to figure out that you need to freebase it or smoke it. Like how? What?
This is actually in northwestern Argentina.
Aha.
The Andes, so it's still the Andes, but
The Inca Cueva, a high-altitude cave site in Jujuy, northwestern Argentina. The tubular smoking pipes are made from the long bones of a puma. They were found alongside Anadenanthera seeds, including the plant commonly associated with Vilca Sibyl snuff traditions. Residue testing detected tryptamine alkaloids in the pipes. So they were figuring out how to take these seeds and smoke them. The material's been dated to roughly 2,130 BCE, over 4,000 years ago. That makes the find amongst the oldest direct archaeological evidence for intentional use of psychoactive anadenanthera, scientists in the southern Andes. That's fucking crazy. The careful answer is DMT was detected in pipe residues, but Anadenanthera colubrina is not simply a DMT plant. Its psychoactive chemistry can include bufotenin DMT and 5-MeO DMT in varying quantities. Depending on plant material and preparation, the archaeological interpretation is that the pipes were used in a ritual context involving, one more time, Anadenanthera, rather than proof that people were using modern purified DMT. Either way, they're smoking whatever the fuck that stuff is. They're getting DMT from it. So they had figured out somehow or another that ingesting it through smoke. Now, one of the reasons why this is particularly significant is there's scholars out of, I think it's the University of Jerusalem, that believe that the burning bush that Moses encountered,
Some kind of psychedelic.
That's exactly what they think. They think the translation they believe it was possibly the acacia tree, which is apparently rich in DMT, so that Moses trips balls and gets some really good solid rules to live by and comes back with them and said, hey, this is what God said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clearly the case that ancient cultures, not just in South America, but across the world, were using psychedelic substances. And yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the theory of whether that caused agriculture or whether that led to civilization or anything like that, I mean, I don't know, but it's certainly interesting that human beings seem to have been experimenting with psychoactive substances for a long time. And yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and much like in our culture today, and especially what happened in 1970, where all that stuff was demonized and put on Schedule 1. Back then, during the Eleusinian Mysteries, the reason why those mysteries stopped is because the powers that be were like, hey, these guys are a fucking problem. These trippy dudes with their weird ideas who invented democracy, they're going to fuck this whole thing up. We're not going to be able to run it and tell everybody what to do and force them into going to war.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but the powers that be always want to restrict any kind of like thought that's outside of the what they want people to think. They don't want people to think as freely as they can. And I guess
anything that limits their control.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants control, and there's always new groups that say, "You don't know what the fuck you're doing. Let me take the realm," and that's always been the case, which is probably good for people. It probably is what leads to, I mean, not the war part of it, but probably these new ideas is what leads to an advancement of civilization rather than stagnation that we find in some places in the world where they haven't had a chance to do that.
Yeah.
Like my friends that have been to Afghanistan, they had to serve over there. They're essentially saying that they're living like people lived thousands of years ago. There's warlords and they control regions. And that's how they've always done it. And they live this weird nomadic lifestyle in the mountains, and it's not much different than the way it was thousands and thousands of years ago.
Very clan-like way
yeah.
of living. Yeah.
And if that guy and these groups just stay in control forever, it's like there's no motivation for them to change and evolve and grow.
There's no innovation or anything like that.
Nothing's happening. Also, they're stuck in the mountains, so it's like you're just trying to live.
Yeah.
But when we think of these places, these very fertile places on Earth, where like particularly Turkey's fascinating. And many people are now speculating that if there is a singular place, that might have been one of the birthplaces of true civilization. This episode is brought to you by Blue Chew. Man, let's talk about Blue Chew. They're already the #1 brand for better sex, but what they're doing with Blue Chew Gold is completely next level. Gold is a 4-in-1 formula designed to make your bedroom noisy again. Obviously, it gets you hard, like you're back in your 20s, and everything is handled 100% online. But Gold boosts your arousal, getting you ready for sex physically and mentally. Plus, it dissolves under your tongue for faster absorption, so you get that spontaneous energy back. Look at the stats. Gold is 3 times stronger, 5 times faster, and 8 times longer lasting than old school methods. Blue Chew Gold is the real deal. Right now, buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold and get the 3rd free with my code Rogan. You will also receive free overnight shipping. Head over to bluechew.com for details and important safety information. Check it out. This ad and the products being advertised are intended for a United States audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think it undoubtedly is. I think Taş Tepe, which is in modern-day Turkey, is the earliest evidence, in my view, of something akin to civilization. And now archaeologists will say it's not civilization because it doesn't quite tick off every part of the checklist, but I think that's neither here nor there. I think it's clearly a very sophisticated culture. I mean, you have like 14 sites there that are now clearly shown to be interlinked, shared symbolisms, shared religious traditions, same architectural styles, very impressive architecture, clearly organized labor, stratified society, because how do you achieve that without someone at the top and someone below? And these are all things that we used to think were civilization, right? And yet people aren't happy with us calling Taş Tepe a civilization, but I think it will get there.
But don't you think that's just because of them trying to protect their timeline that they've been teaching?
Yeah, and I think it will change. I think it will change.
I don't think there's any other explanation other than that. I mean, it fits, as you said, all the criteria for civilization that we used to apply. And the fact that they are moving the goalposts just because they didn't know it existed.
And they're finding residential buildings at Göbekli Tepe now, and that was always one that used to say, look, people didn't live there, they must have migrated there, but now they're finding that people did live there, like, I guess permanently, or at least semi-permanently. And look, yeah, there's all the sites, and
Crazy.
Quite a vast area, all connected, and so the only ones they haven't got now is writing, and there's an interesting discovery regarding writing at Göbekli Tepe and agriculture.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday.
The Irving Finkel thing.
Yeah,
so interesting.
Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah.
So are those where you see those pillars? Are those sites where you have like those concentric circles?
I assume so. Those are the famous ones anyway. Karahan Tepe, Göbekli Tepe, Seyfer Tepe. Those are the biggest ones.
And only 5% of Göbekli Tepe currently has even been excavated, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. When you think like, well, okay, how many of them are also still underground? Like how many do we know only exist because of ground penetrating radar and all the other techniques?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Like Göbekli Tepe, if all of it was excavated, is something like 50 times larger than Stonehenge. And Stonehenge is obviously an incredibly famous site. And yet it's so much bigger. And like to be clear, it is standard archaeological practice to not excavate too much of a site. But
What are we looking at here?
that's Göbekli Tepe.
And what are we looking at in terms of these grids?
I think maybe that's the kind of archaeological pit.
Right.
I think. I'm not 100% sure.
It seems like it, right? Because it seems like the grids go on top of these circles, which doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. So obviously they have to go very slowly. The risk of destroying some incredible find, some beautiful ancient thing because you're using tractors or something like that is too
it's
great.
valid. It is valid.
Yeah.
But I would argue, and I've said this before, is that Göbekli Tepe is a site that has such important ramifications for our understanding of civilization and the origins of civilization that it should receive special treatment, right? Because it is the oldest site that looks like civilization. So I always think that maybe we should not, obviously you want to be careful when you go in and you want to follow correct archaeological procedure, but at the same time, what if a relic like equivalent to the Rosetta Stone, the one stone that we found that completely translated Egyptian hieroglyphs and opened up ancient Egypt to our understanding. What if some kind of equivalent artifact is hiding in the unexcavated 95% of Göbekli Tepe?
right.
That could be waiting for us to find.
We
And
talked about this boar before, Joe.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever seeing it, but it's not new. But it was also found at Göbekli Tepe. It was painted.
Oh,
I think like some of the mouth was painted red.
it's crazy looking.
It's life size. I'm pretty close to life size.
The whole thing is really fascinating because it's also, I think it's the first evidence of 3D carving in stone too.
yeah,
Is
raised
that-
relief, I think it's
Yeah.
called. Yeah, or
So
that's a statue. But
What
yeah.
what we're saying about that is, in like these boars and snakes and all these different animals that are on these incredible pillars, they're not carved into it. The stone is carved around it, which is advanced. That's it takes a sophisticated use of tools and an understanding of how to work stone to be able to do something like that.
And crucially, specialization, right? That's someone's job. They're not out there gathering food. That's their job. That's their
Right.
how they spend their time.
And it's also, hey, how'd you move those?
Yeah, of course.
What those stones are huge.
Of course,
What
of course.
the biggest ones are like? How
I think most of them are like 10 tons, but I think they found one that hadn't been moved by the quarry that was something like 50 tons. And obviously they would have assumed that they would have had a method to move that, otherwise they wouldn't have carved it out.
Yeah, 50 tons is high, and stubby little peckers
They're highlighting. It says clutching.
clutching their peckers. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever you're into, bro. Must have been a weird world back then. And then the real question is this the oldest civilization, or is this the oldest reboot of civilization that was destroyed by the Great Flood and by the Younger Dryas impact and whatever the fuck could have happened to whatever civilization previously existed? That's where things get real squirrely.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because if that is a civilization, which I think it's becoming clear that it is, and it doesn't really matter how you define civilization, it's clearly incredibly sophisticated. Like, it's a very sophisticated
Yeah, that
culture.
word is a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, who cares? It's clearly very sophisticated culture.
It's like when Fauci was talking about gain of function. Like, hey, fucker.
Yeah.
You know what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that means that, the timeline of civilization, whatever you want to call it, has doubled from 6,000 years to 12,000 years. So then the question becomes, how much further back does it go? Because clearly, Tashtapela, Göbekli Tepe, it's not the first thing these people built. They weren't starting from scratch. They weren't just hunter-gatherers that thought, let's try something new and build this. Like, there's clearly a long procedure up to that point. So how far back does that go?
And for people that don't know, we should probably explain that one of the reasons why they're able to accurately carbon test Göbekli Tepe is because, and this is where it gets really weird, the dirt is uniform in that it was intentionally covered. So these sites weren't covered, just over time, like maybe the Sphinx was in Egypt. They were covered intentionally, and they were covered 11,600-ish years ago. So how old were they before they were covered?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's only the earliest date we have, but that doesn't mean it's the date that they were constructed.
And why were
right?
they covered?
Yeah, I mean, there is debate over that, but that's what Klaus Schmidt thought. The original.
What is the debate?
Well, some people say it wasn't intentionally covered, and it was just kind of like a landslide over.
Like a crazy landslide
Yeah.
that'll happen at once?
Because it's really hard to prove. And
But
that's
what
just-
an amazing landslide that covers everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would still lean towards the original interpretation from the original archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, but obviously,
And why did he think they covered it?
I don't know.
Like
I
a
think
conquering civilization, or like, fuck these people and their beautiful pillars?
no. I think he thought the people that built it covered it. Or well, I guess
Interesting.
you can't tell, can you? And that's the
Right.
thing with so much of this stuff is that no one knows, and especially the further back you get in time, anyone that talks with any confidence around the past, and this is one of my main bugbears with archaeology. Like, I love archaeology and I have a huge respect for archaeologists, and I think they do amazing work. But one of my main bugbears is the confidence in which people talk about the past and ruling out other possibilities, because at the end of the day, none of us know what happened in the deep, deep past, especially when you start getting back to these crazy timescales. It's all speculation, and it doesn't matter if you're a YouTuber like me or if you're a professor. We're all just speculating based on the very limited evidence that we have. And so I don't like it when people say definitive things. I always try and say, maybe this is the case, or maybe that's the case. We don't know. And I think everyone should approach history with that mindset. And that's kind of, if I can get any message across to people, it's that is the message. Like, we don't know. and here's a possibility, and here's a possibility, and here's the evidence that we think is true, but it's really hard to tell.
But it also does stand to reason that biology and archaeology, as they expand the timeline, as biology has expanded the timeline, archaeology should probably tag along.
Well, that's what I mean about the fact that the rug's kind of been pulled out from underneath us.
Yeah. What on purpose means here. There's good reason to think humans intentionally deposited at least some of the fill. Enclosure D alone contained roughly 500 cubic meters of rubble and cultural debris, and particular items, including broken anthropomorphic sculpture heads, appear to have been deliberately placed near pillars during refilling. But archaeologists do not have definitive evidence for the often repeated popular claim that its builders intentionally buried the entire site at once to hide it, preserve it, or mark a single ritual closure. The mound is man-made in the sense that it consists of accumulated archaeological deposits, but its formation involved both human actions and natural sediment movement, ending around 8,000 BCE. Yo, that's a long fucking time ago. I don't think people even really can wrap their head around how long we're talking. Especially, that's the other thing about one of the things that I loved about your whole video series was the one where you were talking about what would be left if there was a human civilization 100,000 or more years ago. And that's not unreasonable if this biology assessment is correct, is that there have been humans far longer than we used to think. So if that's the case, because if we used to think it was 50,000 years, I think when I was in high school, they were saying the Homo sapiens were like 50,000 years old, or maybe 100, right? And now the conventional estimate is like, what, 3?
So the oldest fossils we have of anatomically modern humans are 315 to 360,000 years old. I mean, it's the same fossil set from Jebel Arud in Morocco, but this obviously is really hard to date accurately. But it's between 300 and 350,000.
And then I think it's really important to note that the fossil record is incredibly incomplete because most people don't leave a fossil.
Oh, it's so hard to it's so unlikely that you'd fossilize. It's something like 1 in a million.
So it's such a crazy metric to try to figure out what the past is from these tiny scraps. It's like trying to read a book by a single shard of a piece of paper with a half a sentence in it. And you're like, what do you think this book was about? Like, fuck.
Exactly.
There's not much evidence. That's the problem. But the evidence that they do find is pushing the timeline way back. And that alone, you would think archaeology would go, well, hey, guys, in light of this new evidence, maybe we should consider the possibility that civilization is quite a bit older than we think. If they are the same exact animal, what would take them 300,000 years to develop complex civilization and agriculture and all these different things? Like, why would it take so long? And is it possible that given the incredible possibilities in terms of what kind of natural disasters took place, just asteroid impacts that we know, we find them all over the earth, and some of them are 20,000 years old, 50,000 years old. We find them everywhere. And what kind of an impact would that have had? What would be left of those civilizations? And all those questions, again, guys like you are the ones proposing them and putting them out there. And it's a really good question. It's especially in light of, what we understand about humans biologically. Doesn't it make sense that these people, these just as anatomically completely like us, why would it take them hundreds of thousands of years to figure out a roof?
Yeah, exactly. But I think I think we have clear evidence now that what we call modern intelligence, behavioral modernity, goes back so much further than we think. I would argue back over 1 million years in light of a couple of papers that have come out in the last 12 months.
And what are these papers?
So, there's been 2 really significant papers, I think, since we last spoke. One of them, I think, has really big ramifications for human intelligence, and that's a paper that came out regarding the island of Sulawesi, which is in Indonesia. And this is in relation to human seafaring. So Seafaring was always thought to be an exclusively sapiens trait, exclusively modern humans trait, because it's a really hard thing to do, right? You need to be quite clever to build a boat, to build something that's sophisticated enough to be seaworthy, to get across ocean boundaries and to reach isolated land masses. And we always thought that was only sapiens until very recently, but a paper came out in August last year. You actually sent it to me. Yeah, I don't think you sent me a post that was about stone tools that was found, and I was like, that's interesting. I clicked on the paper, and then I was like, oh wow, look where these stone tools were found, and it was really, really interesting because they were found on Sulawesi, and Sulawesi is an island that crucially sits east of something called the Wallace Line, which is a biogeographic boundary, which means that it has been an island and separated from the mainland for tens of millions of years, and separated by deep ocean channels that are between, depending on the fluctuating sea levels at the time, between 50 and 100 kilometers across. So it's always been an island. And yet, in August 2025, archaeologists at a site called Callao found stone tools on Sulawesi. And that means that some type of human, probably not sapiens, but I guess you never know, some type of human managed to cross that ocean boundary and reach Sulawesi. And that's fascinating, but it's worth saying that it's not the only piece of evidence in the region. There's also a decade or so ago, we found stone tools on Flores, which is just below Sulawesi. It's another island, and crucially, again, east of the Wallace Line. So again, you have to cross an ocean boundary to get to Flores, and they found stone tools there that are 1.02 million years old, and I didn't even say the Sulawesi tools are 1.04 to 1.4 million years old. So over 1 million years ago, some type of human was crossing ocean boundaries to get to these islands. And there's also Luzon, which is just above Sulawesi, same region. And they found stone tools there which are 700,000 years old. Now, the theory always was that this was an accident. When we just had Flores, the theory was that it was accidental drift. So, and a couple of humans were swept out to sea and somehow survived the stormy ocean and the tropical sun, clinging to some driftwood and made it to Flores and somehow survived and colonized the island. But now that we've got Flores, Luzon, and Sulawesi, 3 islands all in the same region, all separated by this ocean boundary, I think it's starting to point less towards accident and more towards behavior, right? More towards a deliberate sea crossing, because to colonize, I was doing some research because of these discoveries, and there's actually been a few papers from NASA on how many humans you need to colonize an isolated landmass, because NASA were doing it for, like, if you were going to Mars or something, and you need a certain amount of humans of breeding age to not have like genetic problems in the population. So you need a certain amount of humans of a breeding age to ensure viability, right? Because otherwise you're going to inbreed and you're all going to die out because of genetic issues. And they said it was something like you need 160 people at least, and that is with strict breeding controls and genetic testing. We can probably assume they weren't doing genetic testing on themselves. And so then the number's somewhere near 500. So what are the chances that 500 individuals were all swept out to sea at the same time, all survived the crossing and all landed on an island and colonized it? That's a huge amount of humans for an accident, do you know what I mean? And then 3 times in 3 separate islands, all in the same region. At what point does accident start looking like behavior? Do you know what I mean? Because that is what are the chances of 500 individuals all being swept out to sea, all surviving, all reaching these islands and all colonizing in 3 separate occasions, all around about 1 million years ago? I think
good.
It's not a high chance, is it? And I think if we apply Occam's razor to it, which is, the simplest explanation wins. I think the simplest explanation is that these humans were intelligent enough to build boats, right?
Right.
And that is a controversial opinion. That's not accepted. It's accepted that the humans reached these islands. That's not controversial. Humans were on these islands 1 million years ago, 700K. And
it's just not accepted that it was intentional.
Yeah, it's not accepted that they built
Well,
boats.
that seems silly.
But I think it
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
if it's not 500 of them make it over by floating and surviving.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly.
All at the same time?
Exactly. And this is what I mean about taking data points from different kind of science. So
Yeah.
because I'm looking into what NASA is saying about humans colonizing somewhere, and I'm saying, well, look, 500 people or more than 500 people of breeding age as well, not just people,
Right.
all reaching an island on 3 separate occasions, all in the same region. Are we sure this wasn't deliberate. So I think that has huge ramifications for human intelligence, because that was always thought to be an exclusively sapiens thing, building a boat, because that's really hard. To
Yeah.
build a boat, you have to have planning, you have to have foresight, you have to
Yeah.
be good enough at carpentry to construct something that's seaworthy. You have to,
Trial and error.
yeah, trial and error. And you have to have the imagination as well to dream about what's on the other side of the horizon.
Yes.
And the bravery and the incredible reckless courage to go for it and to go out there across the horizon and reach an island. And
possibly navigate through the stars. Like they knew how to do that.
maybe.
Maybe.
Because
We
otherwise, why
do.
would you set out, you know?
Right. And how would you repeat it?
Exactly.
Yeah. How are you? Do you remember which way you went? That way. You're like, how do you? Some fucking dude with a giant brow ridge,
Yeah.
furry face is telling you, I remember going this way. You're like, are you fucking sure? How are you doing? Are you using the stars? Like, what are you doing?
But humans weren't even meant to have complex language back then. They weren't meant to be capable of this. I mean,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
We're
'Cause they're
seeing these things.
Organization. There has to be some sort of organization. If you're getting a group of people to agree to get in the boat, if they can't communicate with each other, that seems ridiculous. That seems even more ridiculous. Because let's say at the minimum of 50 kilometers, how long does it take you to row 50 kilometers? Seems like it would be days.
It would be tough, wouldn't it?
Be
And in
days.
an ocean as well. Like it's
right.
tough.
If you even survive, how long is it going to take before you get across? I mean, maybe they figured out when the stormy season was and they time it for when it's not so stormy. But I mean, how are they doing that? Do they have a calendar a million years ago?
But whatever they were doing, if it was deliberate, which I think the evidence points towards, it's a clear sign of what we call modern intelligence.
And organization and most likely communication.
Which we always used to think only emerged 50,000 years ago.
That's crazy.
And so now, if it's over 1 million years old, you know, that is a 20 times, and it could be 1.4. The Sulawesi tools are dated to 1.04 to 1.4. So that's, I don't know, what's that, like 25 times older than we think?
That's so funny, that 0.4. That's a lot.
It's huge. It's absolutely gigantic.
Hundreds of thousands
Yeah, and this is
years.
what you were saying about, like, people can't get their heads around the sheer enormity of these timescales that we're talking about. Like, it's so long.
Yeah.
It's so long.
Well, another weird one that's come up fairly recently that I know you've talked about is the copper mining
Oh, yeah.
in North America.
Yeah,
That one blew me away. Just the volume of copper that was removed.
Yeah, they had a whole copper industry in North America 9,000 years ago, which is
You just listen to that again. Say that one more
a
time.
whole copper industry in North America 9,000 years ago. And that's the same as the earliest date anywhere else in the world.
And the volume.
Yeah,
this
huge.
is what's going to freak people out. Tell them how much copper was removed.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a lot. And to be fair, there's lots of natural copper. I think it's in the kind of northern parts of the United States as it is now. I don't know how much they removed off the top of my head, but it is a lot of copper. And
Like a commercial copper mine volume.
yeah,
of
that's why I said
copper.
industry. Like it's
Yes.
big. It's big.
It's so crazy, and I don't understand how they determined the amount of copper that was removed. But if that is correct, that seems to indicate that there was some sort of sophisticated metallurgy going on in North America 9,000 years ago.
Yeah, which is as early as anywhere else in the world. And that completely flies in the face of what we used to think about people in North America. And it's interesting because what the evidence appears to show is that they did this for a few thousand years, but then they dropped it and they stopped doing it. Now, I don't know what that suggests, but either it suggests something happened to them or they decided they didn't want to do it anymore. But either way, it kind of goes against this idea that we've always kind of assumed that technology is like an escalator, right? We always assume that technology is an escalator. Yeah, there you go.
Here it
1.5 billion pounds of copper.
What? So wrap your head around this, folks. Archaeology and date mining and copper tool use, but it generally cannot calculate annual or century-specific production 9,500 years ago. One older broad estimate puts a total Archaic period extraction in the Lake Superior region at up to about 1.5 billion pounds of copper, roughly 680,000 metric tons. But that covers many millennia, not the century 9,500 years ago. So that means that they were doing it for thousands of years. They're saying it covers many millennia.
Yeah, they were doing it for, as it says, the peak between 7,000 and 5,000 years ago.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So at least 9,500 years ago, they started doing this, somewhere around there. And they did it for thousands of years. They removed copper for thousands of years.
A bunch of it was just sitting on the top. They called it float copper, I think. Like that, like float. Here you go. Float
That's probably how
copper.
they first started finding it,
Yeah,
and then
just
they probably
there.
started digging. Isn't it interesting how, like, precious, what we call precious metals, just they exist in weird deposits. It's like erratic. It's all over the place. Like, come find me.
Yeah.
And these people use this stuff for weapons. They use this stuff for jewelry. They used it for all kinds of things. Arrow points, I'm sure. They probably used it for all sorts of things. They had to use it for weapons, right?
Probably, yeah. I think they found like spear points and stuff.
Yeah, maybe that makes sense.
But then they dropped it, and then they stopped doing it, and we don't know why they did that. But as I was saying,
Oh, wow,
it
look,
kind of
there's the copperhead arrow.
it
that's
goes against
cool.
this idea that we have that technology is like an escalator, and you just take
Right.
one level of technology and you keep going up. It shows that people can invent something or discover something and then stop doing it and forget about it. And I think that has implications for how we look at prehistory as a whole, because it suggests that people, rather than just going straight line, this linear path upwards,
Yeah.
we can go up and down and forget things and rediscover things. And
Right. And that's what this is the alternative theory, is that we're a reinvention of civilization currently, and that we're the most advanced reinvention that we're aware of. But it doesn't mean that there hasn't been some sort of a civilization before us that perhaps reached heights where we are or greater in a completely different direction. And I think when you look at some of the stone structures that exist, those are the best evidence because they're so perplexing. The stones in Lebanon, what do they call the trilithon stones?
yeah, Baalbek, yeah.
Yeah, those are crazy. Like, what happened there? How? What? How'd you
Yeah,
get them
it's-
up there?
It's weird because
How big are
obviously
they?
they're attributed to the Romans, right? But there's no Roman records of them doing that, and that's not particularly weird in itself until you realize that it's a bigger engineering project than anything the Romans did anywhere. I mean, the Colosseum is obviously an incredible thing, but the blocks aren't as big as these blocks at Baalbek, and yet they don't mention it anywhere. And you'd think that a civilization that documented as much as the Romans would at least mention their biggest engineering project somewhere, And I mean, that doesn't mean it wasn't the Romans, but it's just a weird thing. Like,
It's very weird. It's very weird, and it's also weird that, like many places, the structures that are on top of it are not as sophisticated, not as difficult to do. That's how it is over and over and over again. That's Sacsayhuaman. That's a lot of these places. You see the base, the oldest stuff. It seems like they find stuff and they build on top of stuff that was already there. And then you're dealing with thousands and thousands of years of civilization where people don't even remember who built it. They're like the gods. The
Yeah.
gods put these rocks here.
it happens all over the world.
Yeah.
People build on old sites because often the sites are the best site in the region because that's why someone's built there originally. So
Right.
it makes sense to reuse them. But that doesn't mean that the latest civilization that used it was the first. I mean,
Right.
they could be, but it also doesn't mean that they are definitively. But often that's how we take it. And yeah, that's not necessarily the best way of looking at them, I think.
I think what you said earlier is really important, that we can't possibly know, and to make these definitive statements about things where you just don't have enough evidence, you don't have enough facts, you can't really say definitively we know. And that drives experts crazy because they don't like to do that. They don't like to let that go, especially humans, especially men. They love, the ego that comes with being the one who has the information, the expert opinion, that appeal to authority, that I'm the one who could tell you, oh, this is nonsense. These Michael Buttons on YouTube with their bullshit, their archaeological bullshit. They love doing that. But no one's listening to them. That's what's cute.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm grateful that a lot of people listen to me
Well,
rather than them.
like I said, you're really good at it. And it is undeniably, just based on what we've said so far, this is undeniably strange. It's undeniably weird, and it's undeniably, at least to me and you, interesting. And that's why the subject will, hopefully it will continue the pathway that it's on, because there's so many people like you now that are looking at this stuff, and they're very credible people who are very objective. The Ben Van Kerkwicks of the world, and Jimmy Corsetti's, all these people that are looking at this stuff and go, hey, there's a lot going on here, people. There's a lot.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that like the more we uncover, the more we discover, the more new evidence that comes out. I think what we're starting to realize is that the limits on our own knowledge are vastly bigger than we ever used to think. Like we used to think we kind of had it figured out, and this is what I'm talking about with those 3 questions I mentioned at the start. Like we used to think we had the answer to these big questions, but with each new discovery, we're starting to realize just how vast the unknown is. I think there's 2 subjects where this kind of applies. I think the first is physics, and obviously I'm not smart enough or clever enough to talk about physics in any meaningful capacity, but I think it's fair to say that the more we learn about the nature of reality and the universe, the more we realize just how big it is and how crazy it is and how little we understand about our place in it. But I think the other subject is history. I think the more we learn about history, the more we realize how huge the amount of time humans have been on this planet is, how long a mind like ours has been on this planet, how long humans that are very similar to us have been on this planet is. And I think it's a vital thing because physics is kind of the question of where are we, but history is kind of the question of who are we and where did we come from. And that's why I'm so interested in it, because it's a fundamental question to civilization and to who we are. And I think it's really important. And so that's why I talk about this stuff.
Yeah, and also it's cool.
It's very cool. It's so fascinating, man. I love it, and I know you love it too, and it's great.
Well, it's so weird, you know. It's so weird to think like what was it like thousands and thousands of years ago? What did they know? Where did they learn it? And are these stories, these flood myths that exist in all these ancient cultures, is this an echo of a historical record of people trying to keep track of this event that took place that crushed us and brought us down to a few thousand people all over the world, and we had to rebuild? And it's also when you go back thousands of years in the conventional timeline, people were so barbaric. They were so horrible just a few thousand years ago. If they were capable 5,000 years ago of building ancient Egypt, or probably earlier than that, but why were they so brutal 2,000 years ago? Because I think those are the people that survived. Mm-hmm. I think the people that survived were probably fucking terrible. Because they had to be. If there's only we know that the Toba volcano, which was is that Indonesia?
Yeah.
70,000 years ago, got us down to just a few thousand people globally.
Yeah.
Imagine that life.
Yeah, it would have been rough.
Imagine what you had to do to stay alive. Imagine even the thought of raising children in a world where there's only 7,000 people left and limited amounts of food, and most of the population of Earth is dead. What?
Yeah, it's wild.
This is crazy.
We've been through some crazy things as a species.
Yeah, you did it. Didn't you do a video of there's some evidence that at some point in history, most people were killed off in war?
Yeah, so that is related to what you were just saying about. So just after the agricultural revolution, the theory is that because humans then had property and were kind of defending things, that people got a lot more violent. And there's a lot of evidence that around 6,000 years ago, basically all the men died. There's evidence that 95% of male bloodlines were removed, and we can see this from the Y chromosome in genetics. And there's a massive drop-off of the genetic diversity in male bloodlines, and something like 95% went. And no one quite knows why this is, but we see lots of mass graves around this time, and violent graves, and all these people were killing each other. And it might not have been that, but it's weird that it only affected men, because if it was a natural disaster, it would, it wouldn't be specific to either gender, but it's only men. So some people think it's a big amount of violence, but no one really knows. But it's really interesting.
Well, doesn't it make sense though? I mean, think if you go from hunter and gathering, where you're constantly moving, nomadic tribes, a bunch of people that stick together, you're in tents or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're stationary, and you've developed agriculture, and you stay put. And then there's hunter-gatherer tribes that still exist, because guess what? They still exist today. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it was a uniform discovery of agriculture. Everybody adopted it, and there was no more hunter-gatherer tribes, and there's no more tribes of wandering marauders. Mm-hmm. So there's still these tribes of wandering marauders, and so now you have to defend this spot because you're stuck there, because your dumbass built a house. Or like the Mongols used to make fun of people that lived in houses. They thought they were fools, and they lived in felt tents. Period. That's how you're supposed to live. You keep moving, and this idea of staying put. Like, look at these idiots. Like, we're just gonna go sack their city.
Yeah.
Like, they really had no respect for people that were so stupid that they stuck themselves behind walls. Like, you assholes can't even run away. We're going to launch lit human beings on fire with catapults onto your thatched roofs and set everything ablaze. You know, it turns out people are like really good at starting fires when you light them on fire because we're fatty.
Yeah.
Mongols figured out a lot of cute stuff. But, you know, it makes sense that that's when war would become ubiquitous. This episode is brought to you by Ketone IQ. I've tried a lot of supplements, but for years, it's been one thing that I've been obsessed with to keep my brain locked in, and that's ketones, an energy molecule our brains naturally create when pushed to our limits. Ketones used to cost thousands of dollars a shot and were only used by super elite people. But now, thanks to a $6 million research contract with the military, Ketone IQ had a breakthrough, and you can finally get ketones online on Amazon or at Target for $5 a shot. They don't taste good, but damn do they work. Trust me, if you rely on your brain for your day-to-day success like I do, take Ketone IQ. I take it and I love it. I feel sharper. I make better decisions. I have faster memory recall, and I'm more productive. Your brain thrives on ketones. Go to ketone.com/Rogan for 30% off your subscription order, or find Ketone IQ at Target stores nationwide in the protein and electrolyte aisle and get your first shot free. They're so confident in it that they even offer a 60-day money-back guarantee. So go ahead and take your shot.
Yeah, once we settled down and once we owned...
You stay put.
Yeah.
You become a target.
Exactly. And you have something to defend with,
Yes.
be it livestock or crops or houses, as you
Right.
say. And so, yeah, there's quite a lot of evidence that violence did increase massively as we entered the kind of agricultural age that we're still in. So that is interesting.
It's very interesting. And it also is logical. It's a logical progression of how people would behave, given the fact that now all of a sudden they have resources that they've accumulated. They have a very specific location. Mm-hmm. They have to defend that location. That's when people figure out walls, and that's a bigger, you know, whatever. The weird thing is the Great Wall of China. Like, the arrow turrets are facing the wrong way.
Are they?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of it. A lot of the Great Wall, the arrows are facing inward.
To try and keep people in rather than out,
Or try to keep people from China
escaping,
going to whatever's on the other side. It might have been some sections of it weren't constructed by the people that we think were constructed it. You never seen that?
No, I've never
It's
seen that. No.
very weird. Like, people have pondered, like, why did the arrow... Because there's these slots where they can be protected but shoot arrows through. Mm-hmm. But they're facing towards China.
Yeah.
They're not like China defending the wall
Yeah.
like against the Huns. It's weird.
That is strange. That is strange.
See if you can find some of that.
I'm looking it up. It doesn't. It's not a really great answer in this.
So part of it is and part of it isn't. Mostly the Great Wall's defensive features face north outward towards the steppe, the usual direction of major raids and innovation. But many surviving sections have arrow slits and parapets facing both north and south, including seemingly inward towards China. Why face inward? Defense after a breach. If attackers cross the wall or capture the tower, so they prepared to be invaded? Chinese garrisons needed to shoot and counterattack from the south side as well. Control of movement both ways. The wall was a network of forts, gates, signals, and roads, not just a one-sided barrier. Also regulated border crossings, trade, and movement. It is crazy that they've invented a wall that you could see from space.
I know, it's wild. It's like one of the biggest engineering projects ever.
Like, how long is that? Is it like 1,000 miles or something crazy?
I have no idea, but it's big.
How long is the Great Wall of China? Take a guess. I say 1,000 miles. It's probably more.
Easily. China's so big in itself, and the fact that it's the whole, like...
Yeah. What do you think, Jamie? Take a guess.
6,000 kilometers.
6,000?
Yeah.
Wow. Jesus, Jamie.
Well.
You would be really good on The Price is Right.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, my God.
21,000 kilometers.
way closer.
Holy shit. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. 13,171 miles. Motherfucker, that's crazy.
Have you ever been there?
No.
I've been there. It's crazy. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. The whole region around there. I mean, obviously it's really long, but
The famous continuous-looking Ming-era wall that most visitors picture is much shorter, still 8,850 kilometers. When associated structures and natural barriers are included, UNESCO describes the overall Great Wall complex as more than 20,000 kilometers long. So, at the very least, the part that you visit, the Ming-era wall, 8,850 kilometers, which is fucking wild. That is so much wall.
yeah.
Like, what were they doing? So it was built over 2,000 years, from early walls in the 5th to 3rd centuries BCE through major work in the Ming Dynasty, which ended in 1644. Have you ever seen some of the stuff that Cassie Coppersmith has talked about in regards to ancient technology evidence from China?
Not specifically her stuff, but there's lots of weird things in ancient China.
Yeah, weird stuff like jade artifacts that seem to be machined, that don't make any sense, that are like super old, and that seem to be artifacts that were passed down from generation to generation. And thousands of years ago, the civilization that was in possession of them, their current ability to make artifacts was like much cruder. So it seems like this was older stuff that they had somehow or another acquired.
And they lost the knowledge
Like
of...
wafer thin jade, highly polished, seemed to be machined, like weird stuff.
I haven't seen that specifically, but that's interesting. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it seems like a really clear pattern that exists everywhere. That there was something like these ancient vases that they find in Egypt.
Yeah.
That they find these in these old sites, and that these things that were carved out of diorite, which is insanely hard stone, and carved to within less than a human hair of variance. Not only that, if it was on a lathe, how do you account for the fact that it has these handles on the side? Like, how the fuck did they do this? And this was all stuff that was like really, really old by the time these people had it. And that these people, their current state of pottery and sculpture and it was much cruder than this stuff. So it seems like these are like really old things that are artifacts of a time where things were more sophisticated. So it's more evidence of this
Up and down nature of
up and
technology.
down nature.
Yeah, I mean, it's logical, right? That people learn things, discover things, excel at them, and then later people forget them.
Of course, especially when you take into consideration natural disasters.
Mm-hmm.
Natural disasters, wars, things along those lines. Look like Baghdad, before the Mongols got there, was like the center of science in the world.
Yeah. The Arabs, they were incredible at science. And then it's just the natural cycle of civilizations, and we see that throughout recorded history. So why would it not be the case for human beings in the much, 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 much larger period of time, which is prehistory? But it's not just, it's not just like natural disasters and things, and obviously that plays a part, but it's also just the sheer nature of preservation, right? Such a long amount of time that we've been around, human beings on this planet. It's just almost impossible for things to survive when we talk about these 100,000 years, 200,000 years.
Yeah.
It's so hard for things to survive that long.
Right. Any objects, any things that would be left over. Like, I'm sure you've seen those AI depictions of what New York City would look like in just 1,000 years. It's like nothing. Everything's crumbling, gone.
It's mental.
No buildings, no glass. Everything gets absorbed in the earth. You got a jungle where Manhattan is. And maybe you would stumble upon a piece of metal one day.
Yeah. But even then, I've done quite a lot of research on material degradation, and almost all our modern materials, other than stone, are gone in a few millennia. And a few millennia is a long time, but not compared to these timescales that we're talking about.
No, if these timescales are accurate in terms of the human brain, in terms of the ability to logically view the world, invent things, creativity, if they possess this 300,000 years ago, why wouldn't they have figured a lot of this stuff out?
They definitely did. That's the thing. The seafaring thing over 1 million years ago, okay, you can debate it. It could have been an accident, I suppose. I don't think it is, but you can debate it. But I think that we have completely undisputable evidence that human beings were this intelligent 500,000 years ago with the Colombo structure, which we spoke about a lot last time. Like, that is undeniable evidence that some kind of human was unbelievably smart 500 or 476,000 years ago.
Yeah, it was building houses.
Or building something. But
Some sort of structure.
whatever that is requires incredible levels of intelligence. It is clear evidence of what we define as modern behavior.
Right, and it probably wasn't a one-off.
Definitely not.
And so this is what you found. So then it means, were they teaching each other? So if they were teaching each other, what kind of language did they have? What kind of concepts could they grasp?
You're not doing that without abstract thinking, without
Right.
symbolic intelligence.
Right. And how far did it go? Because if it's very rare that we find a piece of wood from that long ago that we can carbon date and that we can test. So how much do we not find? Most of it?
Yeah, almost all of it, because
What
the
did it look
chances
like?
of that surviving is so unbelievably unlikely.
I'm a moron, but I had a thought. My thought was, if AI can get so intelligent that it can do an accurate account of all of the objects on Earth, all of the people on Earth, all of the things on Earth, essentially every molecule that exists on Earth, and then extrapolate back to how they got in that position in the first place, whether through natural ore deposits, natural disasters, volcanoes, all these different things. Like, I wonder what kind of a version of a timeline we would be able to construct with like a super advanced artificial intelligence. I wonder if it's possible to get a framework that is much more definitive than what we're looking at now. I don't know if it's possible. I mean, you'd have to have enough technology that you would be able to literally like scan the entire outer crust of the Earth, which seems daunting today, but ground penetrating radar seemed ridiculous 500 years ago, right? So as we continue to expand, I mean, AI is solving math equations that have perplexed mathematicians for 50 years. They're solving it like that. So this is a new thing. It's very, very rapidly emerging thing. I wonder what kind of a version, what kind of a map of history, at least in terms of like rough timelines of things, we'll be able to get.
That's the great hope for archaeology, right? Is that modern technology allows us to discover things that we previously would not have been able to discover. And as you say, LiDAR is the current example of that. But if you just extrapolate forward, what else could we possibly use to discover things that we
And
haven't?
of course, something like that will emerge because nobody even considered again, 500 years ago, what are you talking about? 500 years from now, who the fuck knows? Who knows? We literally can't imagine what kind of breakthroughs are available.
Mm-hmm. That's the hope. But,
Yeah.
But again, I think part of what makes me think that perhaps we're not going to discover stuff is this preservation problem, because so much of it is just gone. I mean, I guess if, like what you say, like, if we can like somehow extrapolate
Or time
backwards.
machines.
Yeah, I mean,
They could figure out a time machine. That'll throw the whole monkey wrench right into the gears.
well, I think that whatever happens, our current understanding of history, that cannot be the kind of endpoint. Like what we currently think about history is just, there's no way that we've like reached.
No, there's no way we're done.
And that's why it frustrates me so much when people are so definitive about it, because it's like, you really think that we're not going to advance? Because I mean, that's the science is always advancing in every single field all the time. And we're never at the point where we've discovered everything. And yet there's always people in every period of history that think this is the kind of upper limit.
What would be around from 300,000 years ago? Other than what we found so far, stone tools, shit like that. Like, metal would all be gone.
Well, that's the thing. Everything would be gone unless it's like incredibly unlikely preservation, like the Colombo structure, like incredibly unlikely for it to happen. But I mean, there could be other things like that out there, and there almost certainly is. But
Yeah.
most things
That's
would be
what's
gone.
exciting. It's like, God, you don't want to dig up the whole world, but you kind of do.
Yeah.
It's not that old, but this is a jade sword the handle's jade. The sword would have been probably metal. That's why the metal's all fucked up, but the handle's not.
Wow.
So anything with cool rocks or crystals or
Right. Because the
diamonds
handle,
and-
the handle is kind of all that's left. The sword is a rotten piece of
there's
shit.
a few other old. Let's
Yeah,
Like
that's the
disc
one.
and stuff.
These discs are really weird.
Or 3000 BC to 2000 BC.
Yeah.
But they have. I was just doing the research. Up until the Ming Dynasty, I think it was like 1660. They have a book someone wrote about how they were doing this.
Ooh.
But this
How'd
was
they-
that's in 1600.
What did they do
I mean, various things.
in 1600?
yeah.
But some of these are 3,000 years older than that, which is weird.
Jade artifacts.
Wow. Isn't it weird
This
how
is the
like,
cooler shit though. Nephrite.
ooh.
But
Whoa.
the description on how they did this, I'm almost not. I have to take it as they say it. But like the description of how they did it was like they would put abrasives on string and slowly wear away the jade. Or
How
it's
did
like-
they do these three-dimensional little carvings?
Yeah, it says like they'd get this slurry of water and
That kind of
tiny
makes sense.
abrasives.
That one that you just showed, how old is that one?
I don't even know what it is.
That's
Yeah.
fucking weird. It says, how did ancient Chinese carve, what's the word?
That's the
Nephrite?
question I asked.
Without
or, yeah.
metal tools?
This is the link, I think.
What is that
here.
image? That is crazy, man. What's
White
that from?
nephrite.
Where's that
Buddhist
from?
Carving.
What year is that? Oh, that's a modern master. Okay,
there
that
you
makes
go.
sense. That makes sense. Because I was like, how could you do that? That's like the flower petals and everything like that. That seems like you need metal tools. Oh, so this is just an article on the evolution of Chinese jade carving.
Yeah, that is. So that's
Okay,
just-
so
it
this is a
threw it in
modern.
there.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
why it's
threw it in
confusing.
amongst other stuff. That's older.
Yeah.
A griffin. Obviously older. But some of these are drills. Like these little holes, that if you look and zoom in real close, you can see evidence of drills. But that's not,
You could have hand drills.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could have harder stone that you've figured out how to work into a position, and you could have sand, and there's a bunch of things they could use.
So I
Pretty
guess
wild.
Something like this. I mean, it's very crude.
Yeah, I mean, all that is like, you could attribute that to ingenuity and, craftsmen with years of learning how to work these different things. It's when you get to large stuff that you're like, okay,
Yeah.
how'd you get these stones from Aswan? How'd you get a 50-ton block of granite and move it through the mountains with no roads? Help me out.
Yeah. They rolled it all apparently.
How'd you get hundreds of them, thousands of them, millions of them? How'd you do it?
It's too wild.
Yeah, it is very wild, and like some of these things. I'll send you the Cassie Coppersmith episode that I did with her, because some of the stuff is like, it's very confusing because the timeline's pretty clear that this is older stuff, and the older stuff is more complex, more difficult to create, and it seems to indicate the use of machinery. One of the things she pointed out was this crazy statue of a Buddha. Is that in India? Where the guy achieved enlightenment by standing still.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, how tall was it? Is it 90 feet tall?
Oh,
The-
yeah, I remember the one sticking out of the...
Largest individual standing statue, thousands of years old. Looks like it's machined. Like really weird statue. Like,
Bali.
There's so much weird stuff in
and
India. though.
how did they get it there? Did you move it there?
Or did they
was
carve
it
it out of the...
right?
Yeah.
Or was it a stone that you said, wouldn't it be dope if we just,
wow.
yeah, look at that fucker with a big giant hog. But I mean, it's really detailed. It's like, see if you can find a good image of it, young Jimmy. There's some,
I have her photos still on my computer.
yeah, it's really wild. And she said you see it from a long way away.
Give me a second, sorry.
Somebody put their watermark right over his dong. How rude.
Yeah, that's
They
insane.
knew you were going to be looking right there.
Me.
No, everybody. Humans.
There's also like the Kalyasa temple, I think the one where they carved
Kailasa, yeah.
carved right down somehow.
Right.
Hammer and chisel apparently. But
Yeah.
Who knows? It's
Well,
incredible
That's the
sophistication.
one
though.
where an army went to try to destroy it, and they tried for years, and they gave
couldn't.
up.
Really?
Yeah,
I
they
didn't know that.
barely put a fucking dent in it. They scratched a few things up, but they worked on it for years to try to destroy it.
Why?
Because some new guy came along and said, "Fuck these people in the temple."
Yeah, this isn't my religion. This
Right.
doesn't suit my story.
Like
yeah.
what the Taliban did to those ancient
they blew them
Buddhist-
up, yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
over 1,000 years old, and they're like,
And
no.
ISIS to Palmyra.
Yeah.
Sad, man.
I know, it's really sad. And if that's human inclination to do that kind of stuff, like how long have we been doing that? Like
Well,
how
yeah,
much
probably
stuff
always.
is how much stuff is not around anymore because some asshole came along and wanted it removed.
Yeah, because it doesn't suit your narrative. And
Exactly.
Because everyone's always building a story. Humans have always done that, built a story around to legitimize power and rule. And if it doesn't suit your story, you destroy it. And then, yeah.
Exactly.
Would I be able to have some of that coffee? please,
Hell
Joe?
yeah, dog.
Thank
Get
you.
on in there.
Thank you. I got to wake myself up.
Yeah, you're jet lagged. Trip across the pond.
Yes, exactly.
Here he is. This is what it looks like. Isn't that wild, dude?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What's the date on this, the conventional date? Do we know?
That's a good question. They're going to have to carbon date his dong.
We don't know, but I'm sure it's known.
There's a guess, right? Like, what is the guess of the timeline? Whatever it is, it's very perplexing. It's a 57 feet tall monolithic statue of Lord Bahubali.
983.
Okay, so 983 CE. That's what they
That's
believe.
AD, yeah.
Yeah, AD, current era. Regarded as the tallest Jain statue until 2016. Construction of the statue is commissioned by the Ganga dynasty minister. Okay, so how? How'd you make that? Where'd you get it? How'd you get it there? You did that, what? You did that over 1,000 years ago? And how do we know that that's the timeline? I mean, it's weird. It's weird because it looks machined. When you look at it, go back to some of the images, please. When you look at like the detail of the fingers and the toes and the uniformity of the face, it's fucking weird, man. It's like these people had a lot of fucking resources. Look at the size of that dude standing next to it. Like, for real, how do you get that? If that's not a big, giant, contiguous block that was sitting there, what is it made out of?
Granite, I think.
So if that's not just a giant, perfect slab of granite that happens to be roughly in the shape of a guy, and you're like, wouldn't that be dope if we made a dude out of that with a giant dong and just had him just staring over our kingdom?
But we don't do that anymore. That's what's weird. No one's building things like this anymore.
Certainly not out of stone.
No.
Yeah, because we like to make money, and it takes
guess
too much
so.
time to do a fucking pyramid when you can make a nice skyscraper in just a couple of years and put a big Trump on the roof.
Yeah.
No surviving technical manual records, records rather the exact construction procedure. Archaeological and art historical understanding is that the artisans shaped the statue in situ, removing stone around the intended figure, roughing out the body, then refining the face, limbs, hair, and distinctive vines climbing the legs. Imagine if you fucked that up. This approach avoided the near impossible task of quarrying, transporting, and raising a 17-meter finished sculpture onto a hill. Yeah, so if they moved it, if there was definitive proof that it was moved there, then there's another monkey wrench gets thrown into the whole thing. And then you have to go, okay, how? But it does make much more sense if you just carved it out. But also, like, how long would that take? What kind of tools are we talking about? What kind of shitty-ass tools do people have at 900 CE?
Well, then here's the rest of this, other
God.
stuff they did in India.
They did weird stuff in India where they just carved stuff right out of the stone. Like, what was the motivation to build these temples, just carve them right out of volcanic stone?
It's insane.
Crazy.
So detailed as well.
And insanely detailed. And also, some of the sculptures are three-dimensional. Like, how did you get behind them and carve that out? And how did you make all these, like, weird things? Or have you ever seen some of them where they go over it with a light and you can see how
like
three-dimensional it is?
and the Barabar caves. Do you know about them? Also in India, where it's like completely mirror polished surfaces. And yet
Yes.
the conventional explanation for that is that they were just shelters.
Right.
But why are they so precise? They're like completely precise, and they've got this weird mirror polishing.
Yeah.
You don't need that if you're just building a shelter.
And how about those pillars that look like they were cut on lathes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, what? How did you... Oh, what's going on, guys?
I know.
What did you... We're missing so much. We're missing
Yeah.
so many details about the past. It's so frustrating if you're really interested in it, because it's like... how much do we know versus how much are we just assuming?
Well, that's the thing, we're assuming so much. And that's why it bugs me when it's presented as fact or presented as we have all the answers, because we clearly don't.
Yeah. What are the other papers that have come out that have been...
So there was the paper about the 1 million year old skull, human skull, that was found in China last year. And this is super interesting because this is a human with a modern-sized brain, but that was found 1 million years ago. And so again, that has implications for what was really going on 1 million years ago. And if you link that to what I would argue is modern behavior with the seafaring in Southeast Asia, then you have a 1 million year old skull found in China, in Northeast Asia. You put those two things together and you suddenly got human beings with modern brains doing modern things 1 million years ago, and I think it's fascinating. So, I mean, the paper came out, I think, in October last year, and what they did was there are these fossils from a place called Yunxian in China, and they were discovered actually in the 1990s. I think it was 1989 and 1990. There's two skulls, Yunxian 1 and Yunxian 2. But they were badly deformed. Yeah, there you go, Jamie, right on cue. Badly deformed. And they were always thought to be Homo erectus because of where they were found, China, and how old they were, over 1 million years old, because that was the only type of human that should have been in China or in that area at that time, at that age. So they always assumed to be Homo erectus, but a few researchers from a university in China, along with the Natural History Museum in London, a professor named Professor Chris Stringer, they applied modern reconstruction techniques to Yunxian 2, the second skull. And so they used something called CT scanning to reconstruct it. And what they discovered was that they think it's actually a Homo longi skull, which is this part of the same clade as Denisovan. And why that's important is that Denisovan is kind of like a sister
How do you
species.
say it? Do you say Denisovan or Denisovan?
I don't
'Cause
know.
I say Denisovan, but I keep hearing Denisovan. I'm trying to change it.
Yeah, all the scientists say Denisovan, but the cave is Denisova Cave. So it should be Denisovan, you would think.
Fuck the scientists.
It doesn't matter. Denisovan, Denisovan, whatever. Either way, these scientists think this skull is Homo longi, which is a clade of Denisovan, which is crucially a sister species to Neanderthal and us, sapiens, which means that if this skull is 1 million years old and if it is Homo longi, that means that the divergence of our species must have happened before them. So when humans split into Neanderthal, Denisovan, and Homo sapien, if this human was already walking around 1 million years ago, that means that whatever became us had already diverged at that point. So we were already a distinct species, Homo sapiens, 1 million years ago, which is a staggeringly long amount of time and so much older than what we thought before. We used to think this was around 500,000 years ago, so it's like a 400,000 or more than that jump from what we thought before.
Have you heard the theory about Neanderthals, that they believe that Neanderthals were not just a separate group of human, but were actually created by humans interbreeding with other ancient primates?
How do you mean?
So instead of Neanderthals existing previously, that Homo sapiens predate Neanderthals, and that Homo sapiens breeding with some other ancient primate, some other one of these, created Neanderthals.
Maybe. I haven't heard that. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if it's right. I read it and I was like, what? I was like, okay, this is a crazy theory.
Yeah.
And it's because the thought is that Neanderthals were bred out with, that there was interbreeding between humans and Neanderthals, but that might have actually like predated Neanderthals themselves. Like it might be the cause of Neanderthals is that humans, Homo sapiens, bred with something else.
Well, we definitely bred with Neanderthals. And
Right.
probably Denisovans and
Right.
Neanderthals and Denisovans bred together as well. We're all so similar. The fact that we can have kids together is incredible. And they actually recently found evidence of humans and as in sapiens and Neanderthals actually coexisting for a long, long time in the same place and like living in the same place. And because you could always argue before that perhaps it was non-consensual breeding.
Right.
Between like a Neanderthal male and a sapien woman. But now we have evidence that we did live like alongside each other cooperatively. I can't remember where the site is, but that was found recently. So yeah, that's interesting as well because
See if you can find any, whatever the hell I found about Neanderthals possibly a result of humans breeding with other primates.
with other primates, so as in not even...
I mean, not other humans.
see.
That's what it said.
Were not created by modern humans. They're a
I'd-
closely related extinct branch of the human family. This is a very recent proposal.
Yeah, I might have asked the question too in a different way.
How'd you ask it?
I said, were the Neanderthals created by humans? Which isn't really what you said.
No. See if you search, put this in. Is there a theory that Neanderthals were a result of human, maybe see Homo sapiens? Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens breeding with other primates. I guess you wouldn't say primates though, because that's a monkey. Other
Homos.
Other homos. Other ancient humans. Write that. Ancient humans. Ancient human species. Let's see what Perplexity has to say about this. I wish I'd saved that. Because it was really interesting. It says no, not as the main scientific explanation. I don't mean the main scientific explanation. I'm saying, is there a theory? I want to know if there's a theory.
Well, then that has to now. I mean, that's about how we're using this actual thing. Is I'm using it in a general way,
right? But not as the main scientific explanation. Absolutely. But is there a theory? Has anyone theorized that this is possible? Ask that. Theorized that this is possible.
It's gonna have to crawl. If it's new, it has to crawl the websites to find that information.
Yeah.
You know, it might not have.
I want it to crawl.
We can't make it crawl. That's not
Crawl,
how it works.
bitch.
They're going to take over, man. They're going to ruin the
Yes, here it goes. Researchers have proposed hybridization-based ideas, but generally not the exact claim that Neanderthals originally formed from Homo sapiens plus another species. What has been proposed? Paleontologists propose that particularly late Neanderthal or early modern human fossils might be Neanderthal Homo sapien hybrids or descendants of populations that mix repeatedly. No, this is not quite what I'm saying. This is what's fucked up when you watch too many videos and you read too many articles and you don't save them. Because this was quite a few months ago, too.
Let me ask another before I find it.
The Denisovan thing is weird because there's recent proposals. I think there's a paper. I sent you a podcast where they're discussing this paper that as of August, like this month, there's some speculation about the height of the Denisovans and that they think they might have been much larger than Homo sapiens at the time.
Yeah, they found a bone. They found a thigh bone, I think, under the sea, and suggests the Denisovans. And everything we found about Denisovans is that they were bigger than us. So the teeth we haven't got much from them, but the tooth is bigger, the jawbone is bigger, the dragon man skull, which is being classified as very similar to Denisovan, is bigger. And then they found this thigh bone that suggests that they were considerably over 6 foot tall. Now, obviously, that's not like a massive giant, but compared to, the average height of a human today is something like, a male human is something like 5'8" or 5'9", and so a Denisovan being over 6 foot is like quite a considerable jump from that. So it's not like a mythical giant, but it's still bigger than you'd expect an ancient human to be.
And it's also, we're going with a limited amount of fossils, right?
So limited.
So just from what we know, they existed and with larger skulls. Recent genetic research confirms that modern humans, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, repeatedly interbred across a period spanning roughly 200,000 to 250,000 years ago. While it's long believed that interbreeding occurred during a brief window of about 50 to 60,000 years ago, advanced genomic mapping shows multiple waves of contact occurred much earlier. 200,000 to 250,000 years ago, an early wave of Homo sapiens migrating out of Africa encountered and mated with Neanderthals in Eurasia. So what this guy was saying was that it might not have been that, but that even earlier than this, Neanderthals were a result of human beings interbreeding with others, or Homo sapiens interbreeding with others. I don't know. Thank you, though. What we were just at. Oh, Denisovans. So just that one alone was way bigger than most humans at the time. And just from the size of the head, the bones are bigger. It's a bigger brow. It seems like a more robust, larger version of a human. And then when you take into account the range and size of human beings, given the correct amount of resources and food and protein, like, we got 7-foot plus humans that are all over the place today. And imagine if these Denisovan skulls, which seem to be like a completely different structure than a Homo sapiens, they might be the giants of the Bible, is the point.
Yeah.
Like, this might be what they were talking about. Like, there might have been a race of much larger people that were physically dominant over Homo sapiens.
Mm-hmm. They could have been considerably bigger, and they don't even need to be that big for the myths to kind of perpetuate. Do you know what I mean? Like, just for someone to be a little bit bigger, and you encounter a group of them, and you're like a small Homo sapien community. You're going to remember that as
whenever I do the UFC weigh-ins, and I'm standing next to massive fucking, these huge heavyweights. Like, some of these guys are just gigantic humans, you know? 6'7", 6'9", 265 pounds, and they have to cut weight to make 265. These are giant people. Yeah. And then you think this is, whatever percentage of people that are around today that are that big. If the Denisovans, if we just have a limit, we might have caught just a few small ones.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what we don't know. I mean, I wonder what the fuck would happen if they found some bones that indicated there was a man that was 9 feet tall.
And we know that primates can get that big. And obviously we're a primate. I can't remember what it's called, but
Gigantopithecus.
That's the one, yeah. Absolutely gigantic as per the name.
Yeah.
So primates are kind of line of animals can get really big. So
along the same lines of like the timeline of discovery of that is fascinating too, because I think it was in the 1920s, an archaeologist was in an apothecary shop in China, and he found molars that were from a primate that didn't make any sense.
Like, really big.
Yeah, huge. And he's like, where did you get this? And he went there, and then that's where they found jawbones and things. So there's some, we used to think that they were bipedal, because I've read that before, but now they're thinking that not necessarily, and that they might have been, because like a lot of people thought that's Bigfoot. There's this myth that persists throughout Native American cultures, for everywhere else. Yeah, they think it might have been an enormous orangutan. Like that movie. What was it, The Jungle Book?
Jungle Book, yeah.
Yeah. So a 10-foot tall orangutan, like what? I mean, it just makes sense. If there's the people, you brought up Flores before. Now we also know about those little hobbit people that lived on the island of Flores that were these 3-foot tall, tiny little people. Mm-hmm. So the island dwarfism, and then they're a totally different version of human beings, of the human chain, the human tree. Who knows? Who knows what these Denisovans look like?
And island gigantism is also a thing in nature. We see that, and we see
reptiles,
island dwarfism.
right?
Mm-hmm. So it could apply to primates and to humans.
Sure, as long as they had enough food.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the idea of a Denisovan. I mean, they only discovered them in 2010, right?
Oh yeah, so new, and we have hardly anything about them. So
how many are we missing? You know what I mean?
We literally have like a tooth, a jawbone, and this thigh bone, and a few other things.
And how many other versions of humans are we missing?
Yeah, there's ghost populations in our DNA. We know we're missing humans. Like there are other types of humans that we just have nothing for.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's so weird.
That show, Human. Have you ever seen that show? It's on. God, is it a BBC show?
Oh yeah, no, I watched that. Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's good.
But she was on a podcast recently talking about this ghost DNA and how weird it is that a few 100,000 years ago, something happened, and there's this DNA that's in there that's like, what is this? What's this stuff?
Yeah, there's so many populations of humans that we think existed because of our DNA, but we don't know who they were. We've never found them, and they could be, very close to us, but also with significant differences, and it's all up in the air. And same with so much of prehistory, we don't know. Yeah,
and I wonder, like, what kind of a society, do they find stone tools with Denisovans? Do they know that yet?
It's really hard to attribute stone tools to anything, because if you just have the tools, you don't know what human used them, what human made them.
Right.
Because you have to find like a skeleton, and it's so hard to find a skeleton next to the tools, and even then you don't actually know if it was that made the tools. So we don't know.
Yeah. What else has been fascinating for you recently?
So I think the question that I mentioned at the start, the one like when did humans reach isolated land masses such as America and Australia, is a really interesting question because, again, the old ideas we have proven to be incorrect. And I think, especially in the case of the Americas, I think it's super interesting because obviously, as you know, we used to think it was Clovis first 13,000 years ago, but so many sites now seem to be pushing that back much older into the past. So yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, obviously now we know that humans have been in the Americas for at least 22,000 years with white sands footprints, which I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yes,
right?
22,000 years. It's crazy.
So that's the oldest accepted evidence, but I think there's loads of interesting sites that potentially push it quite a lot further back than that, which are a bit more controversial, but when you take them all together, they're kind of, there's white sands. So that's now accepted, I think, by most archaeologists. And why that's important is because it kind of opens it all up again, because of when the kind of the glacial maximums happen, kind of the opening of the corridor, because that's pre that. It means that we now don't know how long humans have been in the Americas. It could go back way further. And then you start looking at these other sites and you think maybe it's a lot older. So there's one in Mexico called Chicoite Cave. Apologies for the pronunciation, it's probably wrong, but this is 33,000 years old, and high in the mountains of northern Mexico, they found like 2,000 stone tools. And they did like 50 separate dates, and the date isn't controversial. What's controversial is if they were human-made tools. But the scientists working at the site think that this is evidence of humans in the Americas 33,000 years ago. Then there's a site in Brazil called Pedra Furada, which is 50,000 years old. Is that Chicoite? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it looks just like a tool, but, I mean, people argue that they're natural. So it's up in the air. It's not accepted yet, but I think that's probably the most, the least controversial.
26,000 years ago.
Yeah, but it goes up to, it's like 30 to 33,000 years, I think. But yeah, there's a site called Pedra Furada in Brazil where they found hearth-like structures, so people making fire. They found charcoal, they found blackened stones, heated stones rather. And that they dated that to like 50 or 60,000 years ago. So that's like a lot older than White Sands, obviously. So that's a really interesting site. Again, not fully accepted by archaeologists, but the people working there are quite convinced that it's evidence of human presence in Brazil, which is obviously quite far south, over 50,000 years ago. But the thing is, you can't prove it because they need so many things to say it for sure. They need like a fossil of a human, basically, because otherwise you can say it's natural. Yeah, I don't know what those paintings are. I'm assuming they're more recent because otherwise that would be pretty clear evidence. But I think the hearth-like structures and the heated stones and the charcoal are dated to over 50,000 years ago.
That's crazy. Go back to that last one, please. Right there. That is wild.
That is wild. I'm assuming that is much more recent because otherwise that would be very clear evidence of human presence. But I think the oldest layers go back. I think it's been continuously, they think it's been continuously inhabited for thousands and thousands of years, with the oldest being over 50,000 years old. Yeah, are they the tools? They might be the tools that, because so critics say that it's natural, right? But
that those are natural things, not tools.
Yeah, but a paper came out in 2023 that really made the case that it's human presence. So
napping, yeah.
And I think it's leaning that way, but it's just so hard to prove it, right? So It's not accepted yet. But
Jamie, I just sent you a link that I found yesterday. I thought it was pretty bizarre, a completely different part of the world, but also really interesting. It's a link to an Instagram video. There's so much of this stuff now. That's what's so cool. It's like, and if you're in a good algorithm, you get inundated. Give me some volume on this.
Algerian Sahara with 5,000 rooms, and we still haven't seen all of them. It's called Sefar. No roads lead to it, no vehicle can reach it. The only way in is on foot, through a maze of stone pathways that all look identical. On the walls inside, there are 15,000 paintings, animals that no longer exist here, rivers that dried up thousands of years ago, and then things no one can identify. Floating figures with no faces, beings with round heads wearing what looks like suits, a figure over 3 meters tall that the man who discovered it simply called a god. Most of Sefar is still unmapped. Whatever else is in there, no one's seen it yet.
I could
There's
do
a
without.
city-
I could do without that guy's voice. He's a little ridiculous.
I gotta take the Radiohead out.
Yeah, settle down, putty. It sounds like a AI voice, right? Like a super enthusiastic AI voice. Is that what it is?
Well, it could be. It very well could be. It definitely is gonna be in the future, but I don't. What was it called? I don't.
remember.
Sefar.
It's just yeah.
Okay, let's try to look it up.
See if you can look it up. In sub-Saharan Africa is another weird one, right? Because especially the Sahara itself, like that used to be vast green, grassy trees, jungle. Like who knows what it was, and now no one's really has really any understanding of what's under that sand.
Yeah, but it was fertile and green literally right up until the point that the conventional timeline has civilization starting, like around 4000 BC is when it flipped to desert. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there has been archaeological work done in the Sahara, but compared to the size of the Sahara,
Right.
there's just got to be loads of stuff under there that could potentially change our understanding of the origins of civilization for sure. Very interesting region, but yeah, extremely hard to excavate for many reasons, such as the climate and also political instability. A lot of those countries are pretty fucked up, so it's hard to like go in there and do archaeology, but very interesting region of the world. And obviously that is where Egypt emerged just after this period. So, you know, what were the people that kind of went to the Nile River doing before? There's many interesting things. There's what's it called? There's an interesting site, Nabta Playa, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little hard to get to. It's in the middle of the Sahara Desert
Boy,
in Algeria,
jeez.
buried
Oh yeah, I have heard of this actually.
somewhere in there.
Fuck. Imagine you're an archaeologist and you're tasked with, someone gives you some funding. Hey,
Sahara Desert, bro.
we want you to get in there and go look around. What?
Yeah, it's probably not the ideal place to go.
You can't even go without getting killed.
Yeah, you don't want to get shot.
You could literally die. So, no.
Yeah.
Just imagine if you found something cool. Imagine you found a bunch of cool shit.
Yeah, you go.
Good luck. Just good luck taking it out. Just they're like, oh, where'd you get that? Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. They'll kill you. That was also my thought. I was going to bring that up about Göbekli Tepe, about if they bring in more archaeologists, more people to dig, if they really truly expand, they really have to keep track of what they find, because the amount of money that someone can get for an artifact on the black market is pretty incredible. This is an issue with Egypt, right?
And South America. Yeah.
Yes, and South America. But Egypt in particular, there's some inconsistencies with Zahi Hawas's versions of like what was discovered in some places, whether or not a skeleton was in a sarcophagus, versus what he said later. You know, like in the older versions, there was a skeleton, and the newer versions, they didn't find anything. So, like, did you sell a skeleton? Because people sell, I'm not saying he did, but did somebody sell a skeleton? Because people sell skeletons. And if you are some rich guy who lives in some other country and you're a billionaire from oil, and you're like, you know what I'd like? You got a guy, he's like, you've got everything, you got all the Ferraris. Like, you know what I want? I want an Egyptian skeleton. Get me that. Go get me a mummy. I want a fucking mummy.
Or any kind of artifact or anything like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially something gold, some ancient gold. All that stuff was stolen out of there. So was it melted down? Like for grave robbers, like that must have been an incredible place to be before everybody discovered all those tombs. Because we know, like with King Tut, which was preserved, luckily nobody got into that until, what year was that they found it? Tutankhamun's.
Oh, I'm not sure, but within the last couple of decades, I think. I'm not sure.
whatever it was. I think it was a little longer than that. But the point is, it's like fantastic gold sarcophagus cover and massive fucking treasure trove of jewels and things like. How much of that stuff is scattered in private collections in the world? You know?
Yeah, and in South America, like, because they spent, like, underneath Cusco, there's all these tunnels, right? And people have known about them for a long, long time. But it took a long time for archaeology to kind of accept that they were there. But people have been going in, like, people had, like, tours and stuff down into the tunnels before it was, like, widely accepted. And back then, it's just rife for people selling it off to the black market because there's no control over it. There's no kind of institutional control over it. So people could just kind of do what they want until it actually finally got, like, controlled by the authorities. So
Yeah.
who knows what went, and all over the world, as you say. There could be stuff that is really interesting that is just out there.
And then there's the elongated skulls, the weird fucking
those are
skulls,
weird,
and
yeah.
a long history of people discovering those. Like, how many people got the good ones? How many of them were removed a long time ago and sit somewhere? Mm-hmm. It's almost like you have to go raid all the rich guys of the world.
See what you got hiding in your
Just
basement.
find some guy, like, what's your Google search like?
Yeah.
Let's find out who's got the stuff. Because, I mean, if you're a person with a private museum, if you got that kind of money, and like, there's people in the world that have private zoos, right? So they have so much money in other countries that they have basically the wild kingdom in their backyard, and that guy's like, well, I got that. Now I want
something even more weird. Yeah.
I want you to build, like, I went to the Cairo Museum once, and I like the way it looks. I want that in my house, There's got to be people like that in the world.
This guy. He's one of them.
Here he goes.
91-year-old Don Miller from Indiana. He had thousands of artifacts removed from his house.
Oh, wow.
I think he had Egyptian mummies.
Whoa.
I'm trying to find the good pictures in the
Don,
list
you
of what
psycho.
he had.
So they seized his stuff. How'd they find out about it? Was he on Instagram?
A delegation from China went to Indiana to claim their stuff.
Whoa,
Yeah.
a delegation from China. I wonder if they showed up with guns. Give me your shit back. FBI raided a 91-year-old missionary's home and found thousands of stolen Native American bones. Whoa.
Amazon River canoe.
Wow,
Egyptian
Ming Dynasty
sarcophagus.
jade, an Egyptian sarcophagus, and a dugout canoe that had traveled down the Amazon River. Wow.
It's just in his house. There's a picture of his house and another thing I had. I mean, it's just all there.
How'd this guy get the scratch? Where's he getting the money for all this? What'd this guy do?
I don't know why there's not a movie about him.
After 10 years, FBI returned 7,000 rare artifacts looted by Indiana grave robber. Oh, he's a grave robber.
That's
That's what they call him? So it's just a dude who's a collector. He might not necessarily be a grave robber.
I don't think this is the same guy.
FBI found 42,000 relics and 2,000 human bones in a man's home.
What is that?
Whoa, what is that, a horse?
Maybe like a pangolin or something.
A sloth? Yeah, it looks like a pangolin, right? 42,000 relics.
Oh, same guy.
No.
Don Miller.
Whoa, it is the same guy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh, this guy's a nut. He died in 2015. Too bad. He was 91 when agents first knocked on his door in 2014. Wow, he only lived a year later. The 42,000 artifacts hoarded by Miller represent what may be the largest ever seizure from a private collection. So this was interesting. It's like, are they saying that he's not allowed to acquire them? Like, do we have rules in terms of, like, say, if you found some stuff? I know we have rules about Native Americans, right? FBI became involved when they learned thousands of items were obtained in violation of antiquities laws and federal and state statutes. According to the FBI, Miller went on digs around the world and illegally brought his finds home to the United States.
I think Nick Cage had to give back that skull he bought because it was stolen from somewhere or something.
He bought a skull?
Like a T-Rex skull.
Oh.
You didn't hear about that?
Oh, he had to give back his T-Rex
I
skull?
think so, because they found out that it was, like, stolen. So he gave it back. I don't know what happened with the money, but...
Whoa. How much is a T-Rex skull?
Also, I was thinking like, this
He
guy
got
got
fucked.
They found this guy. There's got to be. I brought him up because I knew about it. He, probably talked about it at the bar and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
What about the people who don't?
He's on Facebook.
Yeah. What about the people who
Those
don't?
old dudes are all on Facebook. Have you seen the dinosaur that Ways to Well has?
Yes.
Ways to Well legally purchased a dinosaur.
What, like a
So they have a dinosaur bone, some aquatic dinosaur that they have suspended in their ceiling.
really?
Yeah, you can buy dinosaur bones.
He bought a skull for $276,000.
Whoa, he
Stolen
got
from the Mongolian
fucked.
government. Smuggled out of the
Wow.
Gobi Desert.
He voluntarily returned the fossil to the Mongolian government after U.S. authorities found it was smuggled.
Oh no.
Wow. See if you can find the Ways to Well dinosaur. Yeah, you can buy dinosaur bones.
It's pretty cool.
There's a lot of people that don't believe in dinosaurs lately. This
Really?
is very confusing.
Why?
Yeah.
What's their reasoning?
Oh, just they've been lied to about everything. Maybe dinosaurs too. And there's people that think that dinosaurs were actually the dragons of ancient
yeah.
history, and that's all bullshit. It's the dumbest theories. I mean, like we have, there's the Ways to Well dinosaur. That's what it looks like.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. Some sort of an aquatic dinosaur. How much of that is actual bone and how much of it is replica? I don't know. Some of them are replica. I think that's actual bone. But like they have T-Rexes. I think the most complete T-Rex is, I want to say 80%. What is the most complete T-Rex skeleton ever found?
That one just sold recently at an auction.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it was 62% complete.
Is that the most complete one ever?
Pretty sure.
I thought there was a.
Oh, there's one that's 90%. Sorry. There you
Oh,
go.
there you go.
Well, discovered with 90% of its skeleton recovered.
Yeah, we know a lot, folks. This idea that dinosaurs aren't real is really silly.
No, it's definitely real.
Sue.
Yeah.
I don't know why I
Whoa.
named it.
Okay. So that's real. Guys, stop. That's a real skull. The problem is there's been deception. And one of the big pieces of deception is when you go to a lot of museums and you see a dinosaur skeleton, you assume that's how they found it and they put it back together again. Whereas a lot of the pieces of those bones are not real.
Yeah.
A lot of the pieces are recreations and some entire skeletons that are in museums are all a recreation. There's no actual bone that you're actually looking at. And so then people are like, hey.
It's the same with
another one.
ancient sites though.
67 million years old, 80% intact. So like just that alone, 80% of that is real.
That's amazing.
They're real. It's a fucking a real thing that existed, just like fucking crocodiles are still real today. There was a real group of large reptiles that roamed the earth.
For a long time. But the crazy thing, I think dinosaurs really highlight the kind of fragmentary nature of the fossil record, right? Because they existed for 160 million years or something like that. But we only have like a few thousand fossils from that huge amount of time.
Exactly.
And it just shows how little survives, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that the fossil record's just really weird. It takes a lot to make a fossil, so we have a tiny fraction of the actual data.
And we have to extrapolate out from that, and just that's our understanding. And that's why we do not know what happened in the deep past.
Isn't it fucking cool?
It's so cool. I love it. That's why I do what I do, man. I fucking love it.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who, when you first learn about this stuff, anybody that I want to talk to, when you first learn about this stuff, you don't go, whoa, because it is so interesting. And that's why, to me, the reaction to Graham Hancock's Netflix series was so strange, like so unhinged. Like, why are you guys freaking out about this and calling it the most dangerous show?
Yeah. I mean, I've experienced this firsthand now because, I mean, last time I was here, I wasn't really known about, but now I'm a kind of, people know who I am and I get so much hate, like so much hate. And it's weird because people like paint me out to be something I'm not, like, and it's just so strange because I'm me and I know what I think and I know what I believe. And yeah. Obviously you like experience that on a whole different level, but
yeah, I've experienced it from the government.
yeah, exactly. But it's just wild. It's so weird how when people like paint you out to be someone that you're not and put words in your mouth and like, it's strange, but
You'll get used to it. The key is just don't read it. That's the key. Like
Yeah.
you're going to be aware of enough of it peripherally. People will bring it to your attention if
Yeah.
it's really important or if it's like significant. None of it's going to really be important. But as long as, and you're a very conscientious guy and you do a really good job, like I said, of being objective and measured, and that's all you need to do. Just keep doing that. Just don't read the comments.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of people out there that are just very unhappy, period, no matter what. And when someone is getting a lot of attention, they're very angry, always. And there's whatever that number is, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000, it doesn't matter. When they reach you, that negativity is never good for you. It's only bad
and it
for
sits with you a little bit more. Like you get all the positive comments, but you don't really you don't like.
Exactly.
And the negative one sticks in your brain. But you know what's really interesting is like people have done like hit pieces on me and shit, and obviously loads of negative stuff comes through. But also I've had like actual archaeologists and actual people working in actual institutions reach out to me and say like, you know, these are like actual archaeologists, and they're saying like, Michael, we value your work, and like we actually think you're an important voice and stuff like that. And I find that really encouraging because these are, you know, it's easy for us to think about archaeologists as like a kind of bogeyman that like want to suppress all this stuff, but they're not all like that.
No,
Some
I
of them
think
are open to these things.
particularly the young ones, particularly people that are coming up, that really, the reason why they got into this in the first place is because it's such a fascinating subject. And like you, when you've spoken on this, when you were in school and you were getting your degree, you were confused as to why these alternative perspectives weren't entertained. And I think there's a lot of young people that feel confined by the gatekeepers. They feel confined by the career academics that are sort of in charge of who gets tenure, who gets jobs, who gets grants. And it's a very confusing thing. You don't want to ruffle any feathers or step on any toes. And so you feel constrained in your ability to be, you know, curious. And that seems insane for something that is so inherently curious,
And
curiosity driven.
so inherently unknown as well. Like, we do
Yes.
not know,
Right.
as we keep saying.
Right. We're not talking about stuff that's like, you know, established science where you can clearly, you know, it's not mathematics. This is something like weird. This,
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at hints of the past, and the more we look, the more we find older stuff. It's like Graham always says, stuff just keeps getting older. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, it's just so cool that you're out there making videos and that you could do that for a living now.
I know, it's wild. I feel so lucky that I get to do something I'm so interested in and talk about these topics, and also to like create, not to kind of like inspire this thinking in other people. That's really what I want to try and do, is to get people thinking about history from this different perspective, and to think about the unknown and think about the potential that what humans could have been doing now that we know that a mind like ours could have existed for 1 million years, that humans like us could have inhabited this planet for such a vastly longer length of time than we used to believe, and all the possibilities that throws up. More than anything, that's what I want people to think about when they watch my work. I don't want to tell them to believe this or tell them to believe that. I just want them to kind of think about it themselves and open their minds to the possibilities that could have occurred. And that doesn't mean that, like, people always say that I like saying that there's like advanced civilizations in prehistory. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's a lot more on the table than we used to think. And I think that's really fascinating. I wish more people would kind of take that possibility seriously. And that's why I get encouraged when I get these emails from people that are actually in the institutions, because they're the people that are going to rewrite the textbooks. Like, I can say what I want, like I'm just a YouTuber, but we need the people that are actually working in the institutions to think in this way. And then I think we might update our thinking on these things.
I think there's a lot of those young folks that are coming up now in archaeology that do have alternative perspectives, whether or not they're being suppressed. And it's also very encouraging for them to see a pathway outside of academics, academia, like what you're pursuing. And to see, like, not only is this viable, but you can do it with the proper approach, like the way that you're doing it, where you're not making crazy claims, not saying the aliens did it, you're not saying anything nutty. You're just saying, hey, there's a lot going on here. And to pretend that we have an accurate map of the territory seems silly.
Yeah, I just think there's so much more on the table now than there used to be only a few decades ago, and I think that's so exciting when we look at our past because, as I say, it's the reason we're all here, right? It's the reason we live in this civilization is the answer to these questions, and we don't know the answer to these questions anymore. So let's talk about it, you know?
Yeah. What else have you found recently that's interesting?
So I mean, there's older American sites, so. So there's obviously the Saruti Mastodon site, which is 130,000 years old, which is controversial, but I think people
That's
spoke
the
about that.
mastodon bones where they appeared to be, it appears signs of human smashing the bones to get the marrow.
Yeah, just after, like, freshly smashed after the animal had died, and they found, like, these anvils, like these things that look like tools next to the bones, and it's controversial because we can't prove that that was human activity, but it looks like human activity. It was even published in Nature in 2017, so... You know, it's another little data point that pushes back human presence in the America potentially to over 100,000 years ago. And there's even more. There's a site called Calico where I think this one's a little bit, I don't really buy this one, but a very famous archaeologist called Louis Leakey, who was like one of the top names in the archaeology in the 20th century, he believed that Calico showed evidence of human presence in the Americas over 100,000 years ago as well. So it's another data point. And then there's Hueyatlaco, which I think you've heard of. Have you heard of Hueyatlaco? It's this site in Mexico where they had this volcanic ash over these human tools, and they dated the ash to like crazy numbers. I'm talking like 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 years ago, and the tools were below this layer.
What?
Yeah, so...
No, I'm not aware of that one.
So in the 1950s, there was a Mexican archaeologist who was doing some work in the Vasquillo Basin in Mexico near the city of Puebla. And he was finding all these extinct Pleistocene animal remains there alongside human activity. So he called in some American archaeologists and they did some work. And they identified this site called Hueyatlaco, which is an archaeological site there. And they found these very sophisticated stone tools. They're like bifacial stone tools, which means they've been worked on two sides. And it's quite a sophisticated level of tool. And so they found this and they were like, okay, this is an interesting site. Let's bring in some geologists. So the geologists came in and they were expecting to date the kind of sediment around the tools to around 8,000 to 10,000 years ago because they knew about a volcanic eruption that had happened at that time. And so they expected the volcanic ash to be from that. So they did all this testing. But then they found that the ash was giving these crazy dates, like 200,000, 300,000, up to 600,000 years old. And that was completely mental because the tools were below this layer of ash. And then they dated a camel pelvis, I think, that was in situ with the tools. And that camel pelvis came back to 250,000 years old as well. And that was in the same layer of the tools. So they kind of brought all their different dating methods together. And there's multiple kind of geological dating methods on the sediment, the ash, and also the camel pelvis. And they kind of collected all this to a date of 250,000 years ago for this site, for where these tools were found. And and so they tried to publish this, and they received like immense pushback because obviously this was the time of the Clovis first paradigm, and you know, people weren't ready for Clovis to be broken, let alone by such a huge margin, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years old. And they couldn't publish for like 20 years. And by that time, many of the artifacts had gone missing and they didn't know where they were. And the site actually got razed, like it got kind of removed. Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that's like some conspiracy or anything, but it just means that you can't really prove it. But they did eventually publish, and the geologists have always stuck by this date. And there's multiple lines of evidence that suggest that the tools were found below this layer of roughly 250,000 years old. And that's obviously like hugely older than we think humans have been in the Americas. So it's a very interesting site. I want to give a shout out to Will Brown, who's got a channel called Incredible History. He's actually been to the site and he kind of like nudged me in the direction of looking into this one. He's got a great channel. But yeah, it's super interesting because we can't prove it because the tools have gone missing. The site no longer exists, but there's a paper out there written by serious scientists saying that, you know, there could be human presence in the Americas over 200,000 years ago, potentially even older than that. And that would just radically change our understanding of humans in America. So then when you put all these sites together, so obviously White Sands is the earliest at 22,000. But then when you add that to Chicoete Cave, as I mentioned earlier, 33,000, Pedra Furada in Brazil, over 50,000, Saruti Mastodon, 130,000. I don't really think Calico is I think that's natural. But then Huertlaco at 250,000, you know, it only takes one of them to be right for our understanding of when humans reached America to radically shift. And I think it's only logical that humans were in America a lot longer than we think, because, you know, when we're talking about the vast span of time that we've been on this planet, why couldn't we have reached these places?
Right, and then the question is, how did we reach them, and from where?
Mm-hmm.
You know, from where?
Exactly.
That's the weird thing is when you look at like pyramid structures, for instance, like where did that idea come from? How did that idea make it to the Aztecs?
Mm-hmm. All over the world we find
Yeah.
pyramids. Yeah,
Weird.
it is weird. I mean, you could say that it's just like a logical way of building things, but
Maybe.
who knows?
Well, there's also the weirdness in the fact that the Aztecs themselves didn't build the pyramids.
Oh,
They
with some
found-
of them, yeah, like
Yeah.
Teotihuacan was
Yeah.
there before, and they said the name literally means place where the gods lived, and they found it there. And so it was before them, and they don't know who built it.
Right.
They give us lots of our names. They gave us the name Olmec. Olmec means the rubber people, because they knew about the Olmecs. They knew they existed before them, but they didn't really know who they were. But they just called them the rubber people.
Is it because they lived around rubber trees?
I think it's because they use rubber or something. I'm not 100% sure.
So what's the conventional theory about who built these Aztec temples?
I think the theory is that it was a culture that came just before the Aztecs, that we don't have a name for. But they don't. I mean, they don't know. They don't know.
Imagine you don't know anything about them. You don't have a name for them, but they made insanely sophisticated architecture with stone that mirrored the cosmos.
Yeah, no one knows who built the Pyramid of the Sun. I think that's what it's called at Teotihuacan. But it's ginormous and it's incredible, and there's all these different layers to it, and incredibly sophisticated. But we don't know who built it. We don't really know when they built it. I mean, we think we know kind of the region, but we don't know. As is the case with so much of this stuff, we do not know.
Is there a conventional timeline?
Like for Teotihuacan?
Yeah. Did they and what are they basing it on? If they think it came right before the Aztecs, because I'd read as long as 1,000 years before them.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I mean by right before, because I'm thinking in these
That's
big,
a long
but
time.
it's a long time. Yeah,
The United States is not even
Of course,
300 years
of
old.
course. Yeah, of course. But yeah, but what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's like way way
Right.
yeah.
So somewhere around 1,000 years before. But that's the thing. Is like how many of these things happened where there was some sort of a civilization and then it collapsed, and then new people came along. Like the idea that you would have a civilization that was capable of building something as fantastic as some of those Aztec constructions, and then they would just go away.
We just lost all memory of it. And then people just wandered up there one day, the Aztecs, and they're like, whoa, what is this? You know, like.
And it was probably covered with jungle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many of those things were just absorbed by, just nature?
And it's
trees,
no wonder that they
vegetation.
think it was built by gods, right? Because you
Right.
see it and you're like, that is incredible. Who
Right.
built this? It must have been the gods.
And there's no one living in it. Fuck.
And just shows how easily human civilizations can reach a really high peak level of sophistication and then go down again and collapse, and just all memory of them is gone.
Yeah. Any other cool things you've discovered recently?
Well, there's also the question of when humans reached Australia, which I think is another really interesting question, because the conventional time is 65,000 years ago. And there's a site called Majed Bebe in northern Australia, and that's the earliest accepted site in Australia, and that's right in the north of the country, and it makes sense because you have to cross water to get to Australia. You have to build boats and cross water. But there's another really interesting site that's right in the south of Australia, where archaeologists found blackened stones again and charcoal and hearth-like structures, and they dated this site to 120,000 years ago, which is just about double the time that we think humans were in Australia, and it's in the very south of the country. And the archaeologists that are working there actually wrote in their paper that the evidence supports a cultural origin over a natural origin. So they think that it's cultural, as in human, rather than natural, but they can't prove it because there's no associated artifacts and no associated skeletons. But they think that it kind of leans towards being a cultural origin. And obviously, if that's correct, that means human beings weren't only in Australia twice as long as we thought, but also had inhabited the entire continent, or not inhabited, but had gone through the entire continent right down to the very south of the country, twice as old as we thought. And it's just another thing that's like pushing it older and older and older. And it's not accepted, but it's so hard to prove these things because we can't find skeletons, or we can find skeletons, but it's extremely rare. So the bar is so high for proof, but this site called Moyjil 120,000 years ago is, I think, very strong suggestive evidence that human beings have been in Australia twice as long as we think. And obviously that means that they had to have got there by boat. And yeah, that's another interesting one.
Wasn't there something that was done on the genetic connection between Australian Aboriginal people and Denisovans?
Yeah. They think that maybe there was different migratory pathways and different human species potentially also reached Australia. And it's not that wild, because if you think back to the seafaring thing we were talking about earlier, if people were reaching islands over 1 million years ago, then why couldn't they have reached Australia much earlier than we think?
Yeah.
Because if we had that capability for so long, why not?
When they do this, is this, because obviously they didn't even know about Denisovans until 2010. So is this like genetic analysis? And if so, like, do they have genes? Like, how do they get genetic material from these Denisovan skeletons?
I think you can take it from
Like a
fossils,
tooth or something?
I'm not quite sure, but I think you can. I think they know the kind of genetic makeup of the different human species, and so I think you can tell that way if you've got like a trace of the DNA.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, if it's fossilized, do they have actual DNA from Denisovans? And if they do, like, how are they guessing that people, Aboriginal people in Australia, have some traces of it? Just like Europeans have traces of Neanderthal.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and also people in I think like Nepal and these high altitude places, they have quite high traces of Denisovan DNA, and that's what they think allows them to live in high altitude environments. They think that Denisovans are more robust than modern humans and can live in more extreme environments. And they think that people that live in those kind of high altitude regions of the Himalayas and stuff have that kind of gene, if you like. I'm not sure that's the science behind it, but they think they have the traces of that, and that's what allows them to live in these more isolated high altitude environments.
So they think Denisovans lived in high altitude mostly?
Maybe. They don't know.
They don't know.
But
Well, there's only a few bones, right?
exactly. So it's really hard to tell.
So fucking interesting, man.
And also in that region, they found recently the oldest evidence of advanced surgery, which is like way older than we think. It's like 31,000 years ago. They found some surgery in Borneo, which is again in this same region. I think Indonesia is such a fascinating region because it's the place of where the Sunda Shelf was, where obviously the sea levels risen, have covered a huge expanse of land that used to be land, but now no longer is. And so many interesting discoveries here. But yeah, this surgery thing is, they found the skeleton of a child that had his leg amputated, but had lived for many years afterwards, and his whole like lower leg had been amputated off, but had like healed like completely, and he lived like, or she, I think as a girl, lived like a lot longer after that. And obviously that's quite an advanced thing to do, right? Because you have to understand how to prevent infection. You have to, it's a very humid place as well, so it's very hard to survive. It probably was very painful for that individual, but this pushed back our understanding of surgery by like 20,000, no, maybe not quite that long. I can't remember. I think it was like 7,000 years ago. So yeah, by a long way, because this is 31,000 years ago. So again, it's showing prehistoric humans to be far more sophisticated than we think. They were performing surgery 31,000 years ago and surviving and living for years afterwards. And
that is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they had any pharmacological interventions, like to deal with the pain.
Well, I think they would have used wild plants, because we've got so much evidence now of other human species and our human species using wild plants to for medicinal purposes.
Right.
We see Neanderthals doing that a long time ago, like cultivating wild plants and using them as painkillers and stuff like that.
What's gonna kill the pain of a fucking amputation?
Well, probably not much, but
Of a bone saw.
I know.
Right? And they're like, what kind of tools did they have? Like, what were they doing it with? How'd they stitch people up? Did they have needles? Did they have thread? Did they just leave the wound open? Like, what did they do?
But whatever they did, it worked, and they were
That's
sophisticated enough
crazy.
to keep that person alive and to care for them and for them to live years afterwards. Ooh, excuse me. It's wild. So it's yet more evidence of people being just super sophisticated so much longer in time than we thought. And it all points in one direction, man, which is humans have been here longer. They've been more intelligent than we thought for a long, long time.
If you had a guess, what do you think is the oldest real true civilization? When do you think it started?
So I think in terms of like what we call civilization, in terms of our current like cycle of it, if you like, I think it is Tashtapela and whatever came before that. But I don't think it would probably been that far further before that. But I think that from the onset of the Holocene, I think we basically started right away all over the globe and, develop civilization because it happens everywhere, right? Back to question one. Why did it happen everywhere all over the time? Because I think that's what humans do. I think once we get a stable period of climate, we innovate because agriculture and civilization can't have been a very hard invention to do because everyone did it. It happened everywhere, all over the world. So it's not like a really unique, hard thing to do because people did it everywhere. So that makes me think, what about all the other periods of stable climate that we've had? And now that we know that human beings have been around for so long, it's something like 4 stable warm periods in the time that we have modern sapient fossils, so 300,000 years. But then if you extrapolate that out to this million-year timescale of modern-sized brains and modern behavior with the seafaring, it's something like 11 warm periods that we've lived through of stable climate conditions that have lasted for over 10,000 years. So you look at each of those warm periods and you think, if agriculture and civilization isn't that, hard, seismic of an invention to do, why couldn't it have happened in those previous warm periods? 11 of them going back to 1 million years and possibly beyond.
There's also that very weird phenomenon when someone somewhere figures something out, even if people aren't connected, other places in the world, people figure it out at the same time. That we know that to be the case today. Rupert Sheldrake has a term for it. I think it's called, is it morphic resonance? So his term is also based around theories that they've done with rats and mazes, that if you teach a rat a maze on the East Coast, rats on the West Coast learn it quicker.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got lots of interesting work, hasn't he? About kind of like almost telepathic.
Weird stuff.
Yeah, very weird stuff.
There's probably some sort of Akashic record, that there's probably some sort of shared field of information that whether or not it's tangible and you can write it down verbatim, or whether or not it's some sort of implied concepts and ideas that are transmitted through the species. That like creativity itself is almost like something that we tap into uniformly as a species.
It's like you can almost like we're an antenna.
Yeah. And that like when Michael Button figures something out, someone on the other part of the world is like, oh, I feel it.
Yeah.
It's just very weird. It's a very weird idea.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to prove. Or I mean, you can imply it. And the rat thing is very interesting. I think they've done them with some other things as well. So it's interesting because like if that's not the case, then what do you have, a seafaring civilization that travels the entire globe? Do you have something that so advanced they figured out how to traverse continents and they're bringing all this information with them? Is it one group? No, it seems like they all kind of figure it out at the same time, or roughly.
But it is pretty much the same time in comparison to the amount of time that we've been on the planet, right? It's not a coincidence.
It's an explosion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why? Because the reason given is the climate. That's the old reason. But I think that is the reason, because the climate got warmer, so agriculture, civilization. And yeah, that makes sense. But then why not before? Why not in all of these 11 warm periods where humans have been here and been smart? If it's such a common invention, why didn't it happen before?
Right.
Maybe it did.
Maybe it did. It's also interesting how much stuff, like if you think about the global temperature, like where is it always warm? Well, it's always warm around the equator. Kind of always stays warm around there. And well, what's around there? Well, the Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. And even in periods of, like the fully glaciated periods, some places on the Earth were perfectly habitable.
Right.
So who knows? But then, I mean, and that goes back into like you say, the Amazon, it goes back into the question of how long have humans been in America? Because if we've been in America and the Americas for a lot longer than we think, then people have been in the Amazon a lot longer than we think. And then you look at the discoveries in the Amazon and how there's been civilizations there a lot further back in time than we thought. Well, how far back in time? Obviously, the evidence we've seen so far doesn't point like crazy back in time, but we don't know.
Well, there's so little evidence. That's the problem. I mean, they're just recently discovering these grids. right? And so how much archaeological work has been done on all of these grids?
Oh yeah, exactly. It's so hard, and also the rainforest is such like an extreme recycling kind of natural machine that it's going to destroy anything that's older than a few thousand years ago. So
it doesn't mean that there's not stuff that's older than a few thousand years ago. It just means there's nothing left.
And they could have built in organic materials that have just decayed, and you would never see it. And they could have been doing that hundreds of thousands of years ago, and who knows? So it's wild, man. It's so wild. And I think the potential is enormous, just absolutely enormous. And that's why I do what I do, because I think it's so fascinating. And I love talking about it, and I love getting other people to think about it. And that's the great privilege of me being able to do this job. So, yeah.
Well, it's an important job. It really is, because those videos, although they are, just YouTube and they're entertaining, they're just, something that anyone can digest. There's so much valid, fascinating information on them, and so many valid questions that we really can't quite answer. And it expands when people watch them, you get this understanding like, oh, wow, this is a big puzzle. This thing is really complicated. Like, it's a lot more complicated than we've been told, especially by, people that want you to believe that they have the answers.
Yeah, that's what I hate it. I hate the certainty that people talk about the past, because I never talk about it with certainty. I'm not saying this is necessarily true. I'm just saying, possibilities everywhere. So many different possibilities. And everything we seem to discover pushes it in one direction. That's older and more intelligence back in time. And yeah, there's so many interesting things. And we barely scratched the surface today.
I know. Well, we could do this for days. Before we wrap it up, though, is there any other really interesting ones that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, there was something interesting that came out in regards to writing. There's a couple of interesting things regarding writing. So obviously writing is the kind of marker of civilization. Like, writing began, civilization began. But we're starting to see evidence of symbolic meaning being transmitted through symbolic notation, like way back further in time than we believe. So obviously the earliest writing is still thought to be about 4000 BC with the ancient Mesopotamian cuneiform and stuff like that. But as you mentioned, Irving Finkel, the kind of idea regarding Tashtapela having a similar thing, and that's 12,000 years ago. But there's much, much older evidence of humans conveying information in a symbolic fashion. So there's an archaeologist called Genevieve von Petzinger, I believe she's called, and she found evidence that on all these Ice Age paintings that we find in Europe, with all these incredible like bulls and bison and stuff, and you've probably seen them, but next to them is like this kind of symbol of notation that people have kind of overlooked for years. But she found 32 recurring signs across a period of 30,000 years, all across the continent. And these signs, she thinks, are like not a language as such, but a kind of a system of encoding meaning. Yeah, there you go. There are the signs. And she kind of makes the argument that these signs are not a language as such, but a kind of tradition of conveying information that lasted for 30,000 years. And that is such a long length of time. Like, if you think about the oldest language today, I think it's ancient Chinese, and that's only a few thousand years old. And yet these signs appear all across the continent of Europe, across a time span of 30,000 years, are pretty much exactly the same, and just these signs. And they also find them in other continents as well. And she doesn't say there's any connection there. I'm not sure there is any connection there, but
the spirals are really weird. They find spirals all over the place, right?
Yeah. They find these signs all over the world. Jamie, you might be able to find
all over the world.
Yeah, there's like a cool map where they kind of point where it's all found. If you scroll down a little bit on the left, that one, yeah. You see this. That's really blurry. Yeah, once it loads. But it's all over the world. There you go. And it's the same signs.
Wow. That's crazy. So the same signs in Europe, North America, Central Africa, South America, Southern Africa, Australia, Malaysia, East Africa, New Guinea. Wow. Borneo, Myanmar.
And she thinks it's like a much older symbolic tradition that humans have kind of carried with them in the kind of migratory routes. And it actually goes back much older than the Ice Age art date of like 40,000 years, but actually comes from when humans first reached Europe out of Africa and spreading across the world. And we've kind of kept the same tradition of conveying information. And again, this has massive implications for human intelligence, because even though it's not a full language, the ability to convey information in a symbolic way is a marker of really sophisticated intelligence. And so it's another really interesting discovery that kind of points towards intelligence, and also the to maintain that tradition over such a long length of time is really interesting, because we don't really do that. Like, as I say, the oldest language is ancient Chinese, and it's only a few thousand years old. And yet these people somehow managed to pass on this language, quote unquote, for 30,000 years.
Have you ever heard anybody discuss the concept that human beings might have had some sort of telepathy that atrophied when we started using language and writing and communicating with words?
Well, what's really interesting is the human brain size has decreased since civilization began. Which is strange, because and it makes sense, because if everything was oral before, you need more of your brain to hold all the information. But once you can kind of outsource it to physical objects, you don't need so much brain like size and space.
How much has it decreased?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's I don't think that's even controversial. I think there's quite a lot of evidence that the human brain size has decreased a little bit in the last 10,000 years or whatever.
Well, weren't like there was some ancient people that thought writing was a bad idea, and that you should remember everything, and that writing things down was actually going to degrade your memory.
Well, I think it certainly does, because you don't need that brain, like part of your brain anymore if you're not memorizing all the information you have. Like, and it makes us smart as a whole, as a civilization.
Of course.
But
and then if you extrapolate, so do hard drives.
Exactly. Well, it's happening on an even bigger scale now with AI and stuff like that.
Yes,
And the
exactly.
internet.
Same process though. Like people talk about ChatGPT decreasing people's intelligence.
Well, because it outsources thinking itself, which is a crazy step. And
we're gonna just go like a raisin.
Exactly. So I mean, So I mean, maybe we're regressing. But I think as a civilization, we're learning more, and
collectively.
But as the individual,
right?
Maybe we're regressing.
And our potential to learn and just to remember things, like just from when I was a boy, I knew everybody's phone number.
Yeah.
And now I don't know anybody's. I know like 3 people's phone numbers.
Because we don't have to memorize anymore.
Exactly.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was also another paper that came out regarding language, which is they found over 200 objects, and this around the same date, around 40,000 years ago. And they basically found like a proto-writing script that had the same level of complexity as the early Sumerian scripts from 3000 BC, but from 40,000 years ago in Ice Age Europe. Again, so it's like another kind of proto-language, symbolic thinking and conveying meaning through symbols. I don't know I can't quite remember off the top of my head, Jamie, but if you type in it was this year, so if you type in PNAS proto-writing 40,000 years ago or something, they found it loads of symbols engraved on bones, and they argued that it was the same level of complexity as the early Sumerian scripts. And again, this was the marker of civilization, 3000 BC, but now this capability is so much older now because of these new discoveries.
Yeah, I saw that. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's
like when you're looking at the writing, like, okay, what are they, like the little scratches on the bones and clay and whatever it is? Like, what are they conveying? Do we even understand what they're conveying, or just assume they're conveying something?
Well, I think they categorized it, and they seem to think it is a kind of proto-script.
Fucking weird, man. Like, that's a script?
Well, like a proto-script, so like the kind of thing that became language, but
right. So there had to be a precursor to language.
But a written language, but if it existed 40,000 years ago, it's so much older than we used to think this capability emerged.
Yeah.
And what does that kind of entail?
Can I see that again, Jamie? The images? How weird. And so at the bottom, that looks a lot like cuneiform.
I think these ones are examples of
more advanced.
But they're saying it's at the same level as this, but 40,000 years ago, which is vastly older than cuneiform.
It's so interesting. I'm sure you've seen we talked about this yesterday as well, the Italian guy who came up with this concept of erosion dating of
the pyramid.
Of the pyramids.
Yeah, you sent me that. Yeah.
That's another weird one. It's like at the high end, he thinks it might be 20,000+ years old. It's like, okay, what?
Yeah. Yeah, because he compared the erosion, because there was an earthquake like 500 years ago that kind of shook all these casing stones off.
Yeah.
And he compared the erosion with the blocks that had always been exposed, with the ones that had recently become exposed. And yeah, he got this data. I mean, I'd like to see that method like tried and tested on sites we know the age of, and proven that way before I take that too seriously. But it's interesting, and
it's all interesting.
interesting.
Listen, your show's super interesting. I'm so glad you're around. I'm so glad there's someone like you that's willing to do that kind of work, because obviously Jamie and I are not going to do it.
Not this week.
But we're super happy to have you in anytime you've got some new stuff you want to talk about, and I'm really excited that your channel just keeps growing, because it's really good, man. You could really tell you put in so much work and so much effort and research, and it's just excellent. It's super entertaining, and it's right up my alley, so...
I appreciate it, Joe.
Thanks for being the fucking man.
Thank you, man. Well, straight back at you, and I really appreciate like all the support you've shown me. Like, it doesn't go unnoticed, man. Like it really means a lot. And yeah, if I could just do a little self plug real quick, like I've got my channel, Michael Button. Search it up, everyone, and check me out. But I just started a second channel called Patterns of History, because I'm really interested in, once we move into recorded history, it's really interesting to see how when the silence lifts and we have these ruins we can cross-check and these dates we can kind of match to different civilizations. It's so interesting how civilizations seem to follow the same patterns all over the world of rise, collapse, fall, and things like that. And it applies today, I think. We see the same patterns happening, and civilizations always think that they're more advanced and, there we go, thanks, and better than the ones before. But
right.
I mean, it's another I could go on for another 3 hours on that. But it's so interesting how we see the same recurring patterns happen throughout civilizations across recorded history as well. So that's like another little project that I'm working on, but I'm still going to go as hard as I possibly can on the kind of archaeological lost history side of things.
Well, it's beautiful that you have so much time to do two different channels too. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm trying my best.
Well, you're kicking ass, dude. Congratulations. It's awesome. Always great to have you. Thank you for being here. One more time, people want to see your channel. They want to find you. What's the best place? I know you're on Spotify now as well, right? So just audio?
Yeah, well, it's the videos as well. It's exactly
videos
the
as
same.
well? Okay,
yeah, I just
great.
put them up there so people can, some people prefer to listen, they let me know that. So
yeah.
I put it out there. So yeah, I've got both my channels. I'm also about to make some music. People should check out my music. Oh,
really?
Yeah, I'm in a band. This is my band.
Oh, that's the alien head?
That's why I keep wearing the alien head, yeah.
Oh, what's the name of your band?
We're called Headache. If people, you get it? It's like the headache, yeah. So people want to check that out. It's
what kind of music?
Punk rock.
Oh, you're a fucking punk rocker.
Yeah, punk rocker, bro.
All right,
I used to do that all the time, and then COVID kind of fucked us up and we couldn't perform live, and our drummer moved to Australia. But we're going to try to make some music again in the near future, so...
That's awesome.
This is headache.com if people want to check that out. But yeah.
Check it out. All right. Michael, thank you.
Appreciate it, Joe.
Look at that.
There you go.
Look
Get us on.
Moody looking motherfuckers.
Yeah, the boys. Yeah, the boys.
The guy in the back. Get your hair out of your eyes, bro. Can't see like that. All right. Bye, everybody.